Morning, Rick.
Morning, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, call him.
1, 2, 3, 4, and I...
But you can't get hot dogs yet at the beach.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and if we could all rise, please. Ann Grandell with Gulf Shore Church is here to lead us in prayer this morning. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, y'all.
Lord, it is easy to get discouraged when we look around at all the damage in our community. However, we are so very grateful that you intervened and spared us from what could have been total devastation. We have a big job ahead, but with your wisdom, guidance, and the resources you will provide, our community will come together and arise and build. Father, we ask that you lift the burden from the shoulders of each member of the City Council, from the city staff, as well as our county and state leaders who have worked day and night. Give them divine strategies on how to rebuild and wisdom for all decisions they need to make. Help them to intentionally take time to rest and recharge without feeling guilty. Lord, blanket our community with peace and hope. Unify and streamline our efforts for the short and long-term recovery efforts. Your word says that what was meant for the destruction of our community will be used for your glory as we trust you and follow your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Councilman Schlechter, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It'll be an honor, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba. Councilman DeWitt.
Here.
Councilman Slakta.
Here.
Mayor Simmons.
Here.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Here.
Councilman Gibson.
Here.
Councilman Forbes.
Here. Okay, good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good morning, Mayor.
And we're going to move on now to public comment on agenda items. Members of the public that would like to speak, please come forward at this time.
I don't know if it's on the agenda, but I appreciate the way the people of this country come together on the times of need. They forget about all the bickering and carrying on, and they help each other and love their brother. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Rick, just for a second. There's a lot of noise in the room. If we could stop that, please, immediately. Thank you. Rick, were you finished? I'm sorry.
I'm just so proud of this country that when we get in time of need, we all pull together and help each other out.
Thank you, Rick.
And,
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Tori Polanitsa, 22-year resident of the DRGR and former member of the Bonita Springs Citizens Water Strategy Task Force. I think what the city needs is an area-wide solution, and there are several areas that may hold the solution. This problem is basically twofold: conveyance and storage. We basically have Bonita Beach Road and I-75 acting as berms. Palmyra, Village Walk, Worthington have all been raised and have added to and intensified the flooding problems we're seeing in Bonita today. 22 years ago, after the floods of '95, 4,300 acres were taken under eminent domain from private citizens in East Bonita to alleviate this problem. South Florida Water Management has not completed the work they promised. The funds have dried up, they say, no pun intended. That's inexcusable. Bonita Grande, south of Terry Street, is a county-owned road and runs between Conservation, 2020 land, and South Florida Water Management land on the west. The county needs to fix this problem. It's inexcusable. Bonita Grande, north of Terry, is privately owned and does not flood. In regards to conveyance, who cleans the Imperial River and removes debris, tree stumps? Why is this river not maintained properly? The Rosemary Creek Canal, and it is a canal with trees growing in it, full of stumps and debris. It can be widened and deepened. It does have complications with multiple jurisdictional problems, but the city needs to take a lead here also. Now, in regards to storage, there are two possibilities. Crew has 60,000 acres, approximately 30,000 are in the Imperial watershed. We need to pressure South Florida Water Management to increase storage and continue purchasing the low-lying sections east of the city. Also, Lee County is in the process of purchasing Edison's Farms. If left entirely in its natural state, it will only store what it holds now. 4,000 acres, surely a small portion, could hold a lake or reservoir for recreation and storage. The areas within the city that don't flood are bermed. We need an eastern berm to control the speed at which we allow water to head south and west. In short, it's not our problem to pay for it, but it's ours to own. We need to yell at the state, to yell at the county, to yell at water management. Between the state, county, and South Florida water management, possibly even developers, this city needs to take the lead. These solutions have been here for 22 years. I've been involved in the DRGR. Past studies, including multiple experts in water engineering, have recognized these solutions, but the city of Bonita Springs has chosen to drag its feet and do nothing. It's time to change that. Stop looking at it, make some choices, and please fight for the citizens of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Martha, Councilwoman, good morning.
Mayor, I want to thank each and every one of you. I know we're all tired, but we have hope because we have a beautiful city. It's just kind of resting under a bunch of dead limbs. So I know all of us feel very, very blessed that, we have our life and limb, so to speak, and for those whose homes have been just damaged, they're going to get help, and people are already out there. Our community, as I think Rick Steinmeier spoke, people have been coming together, the fire district, the nonprofits. I mean, I've been out raising money and driving people around, and Mayor, I don't know where you get your energy. You're killing me. I can't keep up with you, and, sorry I tweet you too late at night, but thank you very much, each and every one of you. I know you've been out in the water, in the mud, visiting people's homes personally, and it really means a lot to people that you just show up. I mean, even if we know it's a very difficult situation, and government does take a long time. Nonprofits, not so much. So we're really grateful we have a lot of them in town. I want to talk to you about the water, because we always talked about getting the water right. At your last meeting, you talked about a stormwater utility assessment. That is a #1 priority, I think, that you should get to. And I was very glad to see Amy Cusarada. I don't know where she is, but I was very glad to see her say that. We do live in a large river basin. Obviously, the bathtub was full, with those pictures that you had taken from the floods across the town and all that rainfall. We know we've got a big problem on our hands, and it's bigger than just Bonita Springs. Berming is not the solution. That's part of the problem. Our water gets blocked off here, and then it goes there, and that Spring Creek culvert, that's going to help. I also want to talk to you about Quinn Street. Cullum Hasty, who's still holed up at his house, he looks like a swamp thing. I picked him up to take him to groceries after he paddled out yesterday. Said to me years ago, I talked to people about possibly getting a cooperative over in the Quinn area and creating like a nice condo. Everybody who owns a piece of land would have a piece of the condo would get a condo or lift it up. Even if whatever we restore in the DRGR needs to be lifted up on stilts, water can pass under. You can't stop water, not this much water. And the wind damage has been severe in our tree city. I want to compliment Hanula and Superior for the kind of excellent planting they did, because we didn't lose a lot of the tree landscaping that the city invested in. I'm very proud of that. Looks good. Great work. I have so much more to say. One thing is I think the alarm has gone off. This is a wake-up call from Irma, Maria, Jose, all those. We've had a terrible storm season. There is a thing called climate change. 97.9%, oops, there goes the red light. Give me a sec. 97.9% of scientists agree on this. Okay, I know it's politically not popular in some quarters, but our city has an opportunity to do a resiliency strategy plan through the RPC. They have it ready. Jim Beaver sent me a document saying this is a proposal that the city could do that to be resilient against storm. How do we make ourselves stronger? We're a strong city in our hearts, but we need to become stronger in our infrastructure. So now is the time. We're going to refresh and rebuild. Now is the time to do it right. I'll be happy to send that to you, and hopefully you guys get that on the hopper, and we become a stronger and better city than we already are. And I want to thank everybody in this audience. It's good to see the familiar faces. Hope everybody's safe.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to proclamations and presentations. Don Manley? Yes,
Before
with
you do-
Councilman Gibson, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Before you do so, City Council needs to determine that there was due cause and accept that he is participating by phone.
Sure.
I make a motion that we understand Mike is away for due cause and that he be included in the meeting.
I'll second that. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilman Slackler?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
All right, Councilman Gibson, you're with us, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you. Is Don Manley here?
Yes, he is.
Don, if you could come up, please. Boy, I just want to recognize and thank your efforts, Don, and if you could please share a few words with us and don't be afraid to brag.
Oh, no,
Don't look
well-
at it as bragging, but if you could just please tell us and give us an update from your point of view.
Let me just tell you what a wonderful community this is. Last Tuesday, my wife and I'm eye candy. My wife does all the hard work. You can tell just by looking at this.
You might have that opposite, but anyway, that's okay, buddy.
Last Tuesday, I'm down to late daytime and nighttime. I know those are the two times. I saw a young man in an air tube trying to go down Saunders, and I stopped and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I need to get to my house." And I said, "I have a boat." So the rest is, I went and got a boat and it started this process. My wife and I were in charge of a shelter out in Lehigh. We came home. We're just doing what everybody else does. But I started this process over in that area. I know that area. I know it floods. And we've just been working with the families over there. They've been wonderful people. I mean, this is the true American spirit. When you see the colors and everybody that's coming together over there, it's amazing. We've given out, over the weekend, 50,000, as near as I can figure, 50,000 bottles of water. We've given a truckload trailer stopped with ice. We gave ice away. This is all under the guise of the Rotary Club. We just hung our shingle out there. We have given over 10,000 meals. Not we, the Red Cross, the Salvation Army has stopped and said, we're going to give out meals. And it's just been amazing. And I'm here to tell you, so far it has cost me and the Rotary Club nothing. The people in this community have stepped up. They drive by, they'll stop and say, "What do you need?" The next thing I know, we got a minivan full of diapers. Ice. It is amazing what a community we live in, and this is how much people think of this community. So, I've been in that area, bounded by Quinn, to the Imperial River, back in IBE and Bonita Grande. I've been in that area for 8 or 9 days now, and I've kind of headed that up, and that's my area for Rotary. It's just been amazing, the cooperation, the people who've stopped by. I just can't say enough. My wife and I we've physically been there, but it's been everybody else who has done this. On a side note, I don't know if it's 2004 or 2005 building code change. But every house that I've been in that was built after that date, and the residents are giving me these dates, so I may have the year wrong, but at that change, that worked. It was within a half inch. It was within a half inch, but every house that was built after that code date change, dry. I mean, we went in on some of them where we still had to sandbag the door because the wake we were making with our shoes was going to intrude on their house. That worked for this storm. So I know every time you do a building code change, people complain about it. That one did work. And if somebody wants to know how high they got to get, at least for this storm, that was it. And that's just a personal observation of going in these homes. Some of them, obviously, the older ones have up to 4.5 feet of water in them. We're there. Rotary Club's there. We're actually starting in Estero today. It's Disaster Relief USA. They're starting in Estero today. Our number one priority is those neighborhoods where I'm kind of stationed at, but we can't really get in there in a big group until they dry out. So that's what Rotary's doing. I know there's many other organizations with the churches. I just want to say thank you to everybody because it has been you can't say it's a miracle, but it's coming awful close to that with the people who are doing things for this community.
Right,
Steve,
Mayor,
yes.
yes, Don, you didn't brag enough. You spent more than 12 hours a day helping people out, and we deserve to give you a standing ovation.
You know, if you're in your position, if you're in a position to help your fellow man, you truly have an obligation to do that. And many, many people have stepped up to the plate to do that. And a lot of people just don't know how to go about doing that. My wife and I were very fortunate. We had some friends who taught us not only to write checks, but to get in there and do this. And a lot of people have seen Karen and I do this and have stepped up to the plate. We've had people from Ohio come up. They had a trailer. They lifted the trailer up. They said, we have generators and we've got chainsaws brand new. How many do you need? Yep. 3 chainsaws. Get us 3 chainsaws. And they go out. They go on their way. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. This is truly what America's about. Not the other things. And I know that happens. The other things you see on TV, that is also. But this is what America's about. And again, just thank everybody here for their help.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Okay, can I just take a little Lions Club equal time? Because, okay, because I neglected my duty. My brother here, Lion, Rick Steinmeier, and myself, 2 different clubs, but we are dedicated to disaster relief. We'll be having some funds coming into this city from around the world, from our Lions headquarters, but locally. Our Community Lions Club, Bonita Springs Community Lions Club, has been out feeding people with a catering coach. I have been personally running people around out of floodwater, but we've been raising money for air mattresses for people displaced because they're pretty tired of sleeping on the floor. And, water, food, again, Rotary, the same kind of disaster things, diapers. There is still great need out there. Not so much clothes, people. We'll be setting up a Lions Club GoFundMe site so that people in the community can donate. That will go directly to anybody in Bonita Springs who needs disaster relief. We're going to have long-term needs. People are going to need furniture. People are going to need housewares again. They're going to need a house rebuilt. So please, in the immediate disaster emergency relief, there's great need, but there's going to be a great long-term need. And I know the Rotary, the Lions Club, the Kiwanis, all of our fraternal and service organizations, the American Legion will be serving veterans, the VFW will be out there helping, they already have been. They're all going to have a long-term need. And I know for all these organizations, as our motto is in Lions Club, is we serve. And that's who we are. Constitutionally in our position, all Americans are people of service. And we serve one another, and I'm so proud to be part of this city. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Mayor, I see Pastor Pratt here. I was wondering, would he want to?
Absolutely. Any public service announcements, and I'm serious, anybody that would like to speak, please do so. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. I just want to share with you what the churches are doing. A group of pastors met yesterday and committed ourselves to a partnership working together, along with Love Inc., who has a special expertise in vetting needs and helping people to get to the services that are available, and referring people with legitimate needs to our churches, and also, frankly, filtering out the scam artists who might like to take advantage inappropriately of resources that they have no right to. Therefore, we're committed to a partnership. We know that there are 2 phases to responding to a natural disaster, and the immediate response and the long-term response cannot always be clearly demarcated. Boom, we've moved from one to the other, because some people move quickly into long-term recovery while others still have water up to their knees, and that takes a longer time. But as soon as long-term recovery is beginning, the churches want to be a part of that niche. We've got people helping with the short-term recovery, and thanks to all who are doing a great job on that. Our churches have decided that rather than forming a new 501c3 with lots of administrative overhead and having to hire staff and elect boards and rent office space and form bank accounts, we all have our own administrative structures, and each church is going to establish a dedicated fund which will keep our administrative costs essentially to zero, and that way 100 pennies on every dollar given can be applied to people's needs. We think this is the lean, quick, responsive way to go. And we are blessed to have people in all of our congregations, as well as throughout our community, who have lots and lots of contacts elsewhere. And we are already all encouraging our members, including lots of snowbirds who aren't even here yet, but have been following what's happened, to work their networks and to give generously to any church or any nonprofit in our community. We'd prefer the gifts to be local, though there are wonderful national organizations. We think we can keep the overhead down and keep the response time fast and keep the personal nature better. And so we're asking all of our friends who are members of a church somewhere in Kalamazoo or Albany to encourage their church to give to us. 100% will go to people's needs. We're encouraging people to talk to their businesses, their corporations, their friends, their rich uncles, and so on, to be generous and to do it in a way that can assure that it will really make a difference in people's lives. So that's what we're working on. We are focusing, candidly, upon the working class in our community, those who tend to be underinsured and not to have a financial cushion to handle disasters. And many of them, of course, are even wage dependent, and many are losing work right now due to closures. So that's going to be our special emphasis, and we want to follow the city's lead. If you decide, we will not resist, but will cooperate with you on whatever decisions you make about areas and homes that should not be rebuilt and those that should. We don't want to put time and money and effort into places that are not going to be good long term. And so we are grateful for your willingness to take visionary leadership and plan for the future along that line. And also we're very much to work with all the governmental service club and local nonprofit organizations and be partners with you in this. So that's just a quick update on the church sector of your community and what we're doing.
Great. Could you hold just a second? I think Councilman Forbes wanted to.
Yeah, well, I applaud the church and what they're doing, and I promised to get them something, so I'm going to make the request. If we could email them the drone pictures of the flooding, they want to put that in the email to all these snowbirds up north so their churches can see how bad is.
Right, okay.
So somebody could see to that, that would be great.
Thank you, Fred.
Wonderful, thank you. And while we have you, want to thank you for hosting the FEMA Town Hall meeting that's coming up this Friday night at 6 o'clock. So we'll mention that later, but I just wanted to thank you personally for.
Yeah, we're pleased to be able to do that. We had the opportunity to host Congressman Rooney with a town hall at our church a few months ago, so we're ready and set up and have adequate parking and facilities for as many as we could envision, and we think this town hall might be a little less contentious than the congressman's one.
Well, they won't bus in the protesters.
I don't think so.
This will be a real show of what's going on.
I would love to see
Not
that.
a display for the media, so thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate that. Good morning.
Good morning. Ann Grandel, Executive Director of Love Inc., Love in the Name of Christ. And I just want to let the city staff and council and the community, particularly the nonprofits, to know that we have already mobilized Love Inc. With a triage for families who are calling us who are maybe they have power back and they just don't even know where to start. So we are ready, willing, and able to help in any way we can, and we applaud the nonprofits for taking care of the immediate needs, but this is going to be some long-term recovery, not only financially and physically, but emotionally. And that's why the churches are so important, because they can come alongside and walk with them as we rebuild the community, we rebuild lives.
Right. Thank you.
Laura Carr.
Good morning,
Mayor,
Laura.
Councilman. Tomorrow, I just wanted everybody to know that at the Bonita Springs Assistance Office off of Burnwood, La Soup, which is a nonprofit organization from Ohio, will be handing out containers of homemade gourmet soups, breads, and they're literally driving down and driving back. And so if anybody wants it, including our Rotary, Lions Club, and the churches, come by and get cases of it and deliver.
No, thank you very much, Laura.
9:30.
Appreciate that. And thank you to your son for helping get that set up, and Congressman Rooney. Thank you, Laura. Yes.
Thomas Hecker, Executive Director, Everglades Wonder Gardens. Again, I want to thank everyone. I'm kind of new to the community from Naples, and it's just been amazing, not just the local Venetians, but people from as far as Nevada, Pennsylvania, just showing up like people say. And it's like totally surprises me because we have wildlife and plants, and I know there's a lot of human needs out there, so that was shocking to see that. But everyone's kind of come out of the woodwork, and I wanted to give you an update that no animals were hurt during the storm. We lost a few fish, but we had some hungry gators to feed, so that worked out. And the plants, so
teamwork.
Yes, sacrifice. But the big thing though is the historic trees were pretty much demolished. If you've had a chance to see it, it looks like a tornado kind of just went through a certain area. And we have a plan with the Al O'Donnell from O'Donnell Landscapes to try to upright the big banyans and what they call the kapok tree. So we're going to, when the time comes, cut them back to big old stumps and then upright them. And so that's exciting. And we're just one limb at a time moving stuff out of there. Pretty soon you won't even be able to see the Wonder Gardens from the street because the pile's getting high and wide. But otherwise, people, Services by Jordan's donated food every day for all the volunteers. And so it's really nice to see the community come together, even for, the wildlife and the plants. And I know we're on the agenda later. There's a little discussion, so I'll stick around for that if you have any questions. We're working with the insurance agents and all that to make sure that we, get the best value. And I'll get with the city attorney and make sure that I've been coached already by Bob Rozier just to say yes or no. So we'll see how, when they come that we'll be ready. But there's no, Councilman Forbes, no damage to the buildings either. So some of the exhibits were squished, by banyans, but that's okay. But the overall structures of all the buildings are intact.
Thomas, it may be early right now, but there are a lot of beautiful and exotic trees there. Do you think some of them will be able to be saved?
Yeah, I'm hoping 2 banyans and one, it's called the silk floss tree. The one had the big bottle shape, and we're hoping for those. Mm-hmm. It's just all about leverage with a crane. So how far can we reach with a crane?
Right.
O'Donnell does this stuff all the time. He did it for the Naples Botanical Garden. So we're confident that, if we can get the right angle, that we can lift them. And then, the canopy, when I say it's like 75% gone or 80% gone, it truly is with the leaves and all the branches. But overall, there's a lot of good foundation plantings. The big iconic banyan, when you first walk through the doors, is intact. And so, we just have some other struggles, power irrigation. But, it'll be an opportunity to, add a lot more trees too at the same time.
Right. And I know the signs took an awful hit, but when you think of the historical significance of those signs, I hope, you and your team are thinking about obviously fixing them,
right,
but preserving them just as much as humanly possible, even if they are a little beat up. Looking,
right. So that'll be up, we'll work with Carl and the city to see, the 2 by Maria's might be history, but we'll assess them. The other 2 are in really pretty good shape. The Deadman, the Joyces or whatever are cracked, but in our insurance, at least I found that we have money for the billboards.
And even the signs that are beat up, I think, I would ask you and your team to hang on to them, and we'll figure out the best thing to do with them, because there's a lot of years and a lot of miles on those signs and a lot of good memories.
Right. So we'll do our best to preserve them. But, we'll work with the city to see if they can be or should be erected again in the area.
Wonderful.
And I want to thank everyone's donated money from one of our summer camper graduates just kind of came in to help. And a 10-year-old gave $25. And so through our GoFundMe account, help rebuild the Wonder Gardens, we've raised nearly $4,000 from like $10 donations up to $100. And then on our website, there's been $1,000 donations. So, we're doing the best to get out there with the media to get in funds, because we're like 75% earned income. And so right now we don't have any earned income. And so we moved Brews for the Birds to November 4th. And I think we can reopen November 5th, the Sunday after. That's kind of my goal. And then we'll get, whether we have a special 2-for-1 or reduced admission, I have to talk it through with the board. But Brews for the Birds, we want to continue fundraising, and so I think we'll be in perfect shape by then. Missing a few limbs and branches, but overall, it'll be nice and clean by then.
Great.
All
Thank
right,
you very
thank
much
you.
for the update. Yes, Arlene?
To clarify for the record, we would like to refer to those as historical mural signs.
Other members that would like a public service announcement at this time, or your organization, or quite frankly, anything at all, miscellaneous?
Hat trick.
I want to thank the Mormon Church of Estero personally, because I had about 25 members of their church come by my house with chainsaws, and I've got, like the Wonder Gardens, I had one of the top tropical fruit collections in the state, like number 5, which is no more. And I have a lot of need over there, but the Mormon Church, they had several families to send. One of them is Burton, who works as the landscape director over at Bonita Bay, who lives in my neighborhood. They were looking for an address in Naples, and they ended up on Somerset Lane in Bonita. And they're like, you know where this is? I'm like, that's not on my street. You need help? I was like, angels have descended from heaven. And so there are groups of families and people, different organizations. I just can't say enough about how kind they were to us. And they have 6,000 people on their list. So if anybody wants to join them, they're out doing chainsaw and stuff that, it's just amazing. Made me cry.
Great.
They're awesome.
Wonderful, thank you. Anybody else with any organization or any updates at all? Okay, we're going to move along. Item A here, I understand that Colleen is not able to make it.
Before we finish, Irma, if we could do an extension of the emergency resolution. This is errata sheet number 2.
Which was under item C, but let's go ahead.
I am sorry.
That's okay. If you want to do that now, Audrey, we certainly can. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're through item A. Why don't we jump to C, and then we'll get back to B. Go ahead, Audrey. Kick us off here. No, that's okay.
Because of the public comment, I thought.
Be it for me to be the organized one, Audrey, don't it?
We have before you, okay, so Florida statute section 252.38, part of the Stafford Act, requires that in 7-day increments, any state of local emergency is limited to 7 days, but it may be extended as necessary in 7-day increments. And this provides additional powers for municipalities that you normally wouldn't do, and provides the ability to request financial assistance from FEMA. So it's a good thing to have as long as we need it. I'm requesting in the errata, there's an extension. It's a 2-page extension. When we have votes, I try to bring it to City Council. When we don't, I bring it to the mayor in accordance to an ordinance that we adopted in 2001 that allows the mayor, or in his absence, the deputy mayor, or in both of their absences, any city council member to sign the extensions.
So moved.
Second. Council, is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Great. Audrey, did you have?
That's it, sir.
Okay. And then what we might as well see in how we're here. That was errata sheet 2. We also have another errata sheet. Anybody want to cue this up or kick this off, Carl? Yeah.
Yes. Well, this is the hurricane update that we've got planned here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say some introductory comments and then turn it over to Laura. We also have Captain Blake Lee of the Sheriff's Department, Chief Joe Daigle of Fire Department, John Jenkins from BSU. I'm not sure Terry Lemaine could make it today, and of course you've heard from Pastor Doug Pratt this morning, queued up to add their thoughts about the storm. So if I can just get started on that. And also, for the record, the mayor did extend the emergency declaration last Wednesday as well by his signature. So that was in place throughout. So obviously we had Hurricane Irma, and we are still in recovery mode. The event is not over yet. And as you've heard Pastor Pratt and others indicate, that the event will not be over for some people for quite a long time. That's the long-term view. And I agree with the thought that long-term is going to be important because people need to not care just about today and what they can do, but weeks from now, when this is old news to certain people, some people are going to be still living this. It's like losing a relative and everyone says to the surviving spouse, we're here to help you. If you need anything, please call me. That's all fine, and 3 weeks later, the surviving spouse may be alone. So we need to make sure that our folks are taken care of long term. I want to take even while we're still in the event, I want to thank some people, and that's how I want to start off because, first off, I want to thank our amazing staff. There are people on this staff who have barely had a day off since 2.5 weeks ago. Arlene Hunter, Laura Taylor, Matt Feeney, Chris Campbell, and all the employees who jumped in to help once we reestablished our operations at City Hall have all been great. We've obviously had our elected officials at one time or another involved in this, sometimes Mayor from the very beginning, out in the water, in the news, pushing out the information. And we appreciate that. We've had the fire district who was out on the streets doing assessments literally just hours after the storm passed. In fact, they were called out at midnight on Sunday, the day of the event, to do initial assessments, and they were out there. I want to thank the Sheriff's Office who has worked with us on curfews, in doing assessments in neighborhoods, in handing out food and water to people. They've been in the neighborhoods, just like the fire department has, especially our affected neighborhoods, every day since the storm, and we appreciate their effort as well. BSU was challenged to keep water and sewer provided to our residents, but they managed to do it, okay? And it's great. In fact, I think there were very minimal boil orders even issued, and that's very important as well. South Florida Water Management District obviously was talking to us a month ago about the flooding we had back then because of those rains. And now, unfortunately, they're still in the hunt. They're working with us for even worse flooding through our city, and we appreciate their efforts as well. The Bonita Springs Assistance Office, Terry LeMaine, who runs that, took on the request to help the social service needs of our residents. So if people had needs anywhere from food or clothing, or they needed diapers, or they needed a place to stay temporarily, the Bonita Springs Assistance Office has been there. They also took on the request to help coordinate volunteers so that if people, and we've heard about it already today, if people were ready to step up with equipment and skill sets that will help our residents, that they were encouraged to call the assistance office as well. Why? Because that's the place where we know the needs, and they could match those needs up. And they've been doing a great job, and we very much appreciate that. I want to hit the storm briefly, high level. We can get into
Carl,
a lot.
can I just interrupt for a second? There's
Yes, sir.
one person you forgot, which is Carl Schwing, who's done a heck of a job in this, too.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yes. Oh, my gosh. Thank you all. I know Rick says I'm going to get a bigger head. Or did you say a big head? I wasn't really sure. Thank you very much. Listen, it's my honor and privilege to continue to serve this city, and I love it. And yeah, so like Don said, and I've known Don Manley for years, and you saw him up here. That's the guy right there. It's not about bureaucracy, okay? It's about getting the job done. It's about getting the job done. So let me just briefly talk about, and then I'm going to turn it over to Laura, but I will just tell you, we were in the EOC for days. We were living there. I will tell you that our number one frustration in operating was trying to communicate, all right? Not just with our residents who needed to communicate, but with each other. And it was very frustrating, and Greg can agree to that, because here we had phones that wouldn't work, okay? We had radios that were supposed to be a backup. They didn't work. And that was because of damage to towers in the vicinity. Our cell phone service was spotty at best, But I will say, not a commercial, just an observation, Verizon did a lot better than AT&T.
Or Sprint.
Or Sprint, okay. So, you know, the lack of internet, still an issue. Still making calls today to Comcast and others about internet issues. Power outages, clearly a major issue in this city. 40,000 customers were impacted. As of yesterday, they still had 6,000 down in Bonita Springs, all right? But they're working at it every day. They've got major setups in the city. We thank them for their presence and their ongoing issues that they're dealing with. The outages for people who had generators, that was all great for them, except when they ran out of fuel. So there were times when we were getting calls at the EOC about the need for fuel and could we help them. And we were able to help them with that, and we were thankful to be able to do that because that kept some of our high rises in the city, that kept their elevators working. If they didn't have fuel, people would have been stuck on their floors. So that was important. Flooding, still struggling with this issue. And not only is it bad that it gets into homes, but it impacts people's lives, even if their houses are dry. We've had problems with trash collection because of it. We've had problems with mail delivery because of it. And of course, people are concerned about their health, all right? Wind damage, hardest hit were the areas where extensive mature tree foliage existed. Places like Bonita Bay were nailed bad. I mean, if you really want to see something, you can go to the Wonder Gardens. I know they're not open, but I will tell you, they'll probably tour you through there because it is an awful sight. I went through myself. I'm thankful the animals lived. That's a great thing, but they've got a long recovery ahead of them as well. Now, while structural damage citywide was relatively light, our mobile home communities were not so fortunate. And there are going to have to be some tough decision made as we look at those issues. In fact, some of those communities not only had wind damage to their structures, but they were in floodwaters as well. We had lines down that impacted not only power, but cable, internet, and of course, communications. We continue to assess areas daily to see what we can do as the water recedes. And now we talk about recovery. Recovery is important. One of our big things is really in Laura's bailiwick, and that is pushing out communications. The mayor has been on radio show after radio show. We thank him for that effort because our message changes almost daily. There are new opportunities. There are new volunteers here who are willing to step up and help, and we need to get out to those folks that there is help available, and we are doing that through radio, social media, the website, BTV, the general media to itself, sending out releases, sending out e-blasts to our large selection of email folks, as well as individual district e-blasts. We are handing out flyers. We've done that multiple times, and I want to thank our employees who have been involved in that because they've gone above and beyond what's required in their job descriptions, because that's the kind of employees we have here. And so we've had them waiting in water, knocking on doors, talking to people, handing them flyers about the help that's available. Most recently, yesterday, and we'll continue probably through tomorrow, getting out the information about the FEMA town hall meeting at First Presbyterian Church on Friday, the 22nd at 6 p.m. We'll be doing that. And we found, and commercial people don't use this against us, but road signs are very helpful. And so we've got large road signs out about FPL being in City Hall right now to answer personally questions about their power and what's going on. The FEMA Town Hall meeting, we're going to have extra signs out as well. And then as well as city staff, as well as the fire and the sheriff's department in the neighborhoods talking to people. And we appreciate their effort. Debris removal has commenced. We've hired contractors that are nationally known to handle this in a very efficient manner. We know it will be a number of weeks before everybody can get their storm debris out to the curb, but those contractors and the city will be here to help those people in those times. And that typically happens in waves. We still today continue to receive calls here at the city, fire department, sheriff's department about floods, waters, about power, about trash, about internet disruptions, and needs like food and water. And so we encourage people to stay in communication with us. We appreciate that there are some people in very difficult circumstances in this city. And it becomes very emotional for all of us as well to have to see that and experience it with them, but not at the level that they're living at. We're here to help them. So anyway, with that, that was my general thoughts about it. And if it please the council, I'd like for Laura, our communications director, to pick it up with a PowerPoint.
If I may, Carl?
Yes, sir.
I had a wonderful conversation with Chief Daigle, and I think we need to recognize Laura and Arlene, because Chief Daigle told me what a team they were during this whole storm situation. Chief,
Absolutely.
am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
I concur, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
The mayor was in EOC.
Oh, he
with
was
us.
too.
He saw it too.
The chief said that too. But
Yeah, there's we've got pictures, but we probably won't share some of them.
We all experience a lot of firsts, but when I get to say goodnight to Carl Schwing and Arlene and Laura and Matt Feeney personally, say goodnight, we'll see you in a few hours at the fire station.
And then say good morning,
And
right?
then say good morning a few hours later, right, exactly.
how was the snoring?
Feeney snores, I think, but other than that. Laura, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to start. I did put together a PowerPoint. I'm going to try to hit the high levels and go through it quickly. It's quite a bit of information. But first, I have to echo our city manager's sentiment about our employees and our local agencies. I watched our mayor, our Councilor Greg DeWitt, the fire chief, BSU, all of our employees, along with the employees that hunkered down and stayed through the shelter. And I have to tell you, I was amazed at this community and the coming together and sacrificing personal time and preparations for personal time to take care of our community. So thank you all very much, and I can't be prouder than to work with each and every one of you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Laura.
Thank you.
To start, I want to kind of walk you through the story of what we've done leading up to this point. So we started with executing our emergency management plan. Chris Campbell, our neighborhood services manager, started with maintaining awareness and activation. All city departments stepped up to handle that. We just presented this information to you for the flood, so we're going to follow through the same bullet points here. So the Lee EOC activation, we began maintaining awareness and pushing out information Saturday, September 2nd. We shared information from the Emergency Operations Center and met with our partnering local agencies to discuss communications as we began to prepare for the storm threat. The Lee County Emergency Management, Lee County Sheriff's Office, Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District, Bonita Springs Utilities all worked together to share pertinent information for Bonita residents. This included pre-storm, during storm, and post-storm. Information was shared through approximately 21 e-blast, 135 Facebook posts, 29 Nextdoor posts, 15 BTV updates, 25 website updates, and 30-plus media interviews. Messaging began with urging voluntary evacuations when possible. Information included resources like Gas Buddy and Florida 511 to monitor traffic conditions. Early on, we encountered some rumors that there would not be gas in this area. Mayor Simmons sat on a conference call with our governor where he was assured that we would have gas, allowing our residents to evacuate. So we really had to push information to make sure people were aware that they could still get gas to evacuate. Mayor Simmons held a press conference with Bonita Fire Chief and Lee County Sheriff's Office Undersheriff to urge residents to monitor the storm and leave if possible. This was before any evacuations were issued. He also attended press conferences at the EOC with the governor. Information was shared about National Guard presence in the city and on their way down here. The 511, the website, we shared information about the Sheriff's Office as well as Bonita Springs Fire Rescue District. City departments completed phases of the emergency management plan, including mobilization. We did things like boarded up city facilities, reached out to city contractors to ensure availability for immediate storm response, reached out to city debris removal contractors and debris monitoring firm, inspected city stormwater infrastructure for obstructions, and removed any potential impediments to stormwater. Gathered up gathered up temporary construction signs and roadway barriers and secured them for the storm, monitored the storm track, filled department vehicles with fuel, secured construction sites, checked our radios, and also updated our personnel contact lists. We also shared information from our EOC to tell people to get their errands done as soon as possible as the storm started to approach us. We gave information out about the governor's office hotline. We shared information that once the winds reached 40 miles per hour, county equipment as well as emergency response would cease. We shared information about I-75. We also shared information from the Lee County Sheriff's Office about their website and where they were posting information. Lee County issued and expanded mandatory evacuations, and they notified our residents. The city assisted with pushing this information out. The Lee County Sheriff's Office also assisted with these evacuations. This is a picture of our screen, probably about 45 minutes before the area approached us. If you can see there, it's the eye walls coming to Bonita Springs at 4:50 while we were in the shelter at the fire district. The city manager Swing, assistant city manager Hunter, director Feeney, and myself, along with Mayor Simmons and Councilor Greg DeWitt, were sheltered at the South Geographical Operations Center. We joined Fire Control and Rescue and the Sheriff's Office, Chief Daigle and Lieutenant Prespolewski, so that our messaging and our response to the storm could be a united front. We utilized Facebook Live to record and share press conferences on Thursday, September 8th, so that was pre-storm, trying to urge our residents to leave if they could. We also recorded a clip for BTV to play leading up into the storm. The media was invited. We also had Tad from Bonita Banner here, and he did a story on that. Directly after the storm hit, we also did live broadcasts on Facebook. We heard that residents did not have access to internet or cable, but many of them were able to use their cell service, probably Verizon, to access social media. We did a total of 4 live updates, 3 with the mayor, 1 with Chief Daigle, and 1 with Congressman Rooney, the undersheriff, the fire chief, and the mayor. We got a lot of great comments on these. People felt connected to our officials, and they were getting information that they needed. We assisted Mayor Simmons with coordinating national and local interviews. The requests came in starting on Friday prior to the storm and continued through the duration. Mayor Simmons took countless interviews. Local media included NBC2, Bonita Banner, Wink News. National outlets included CNN, Today Show, MSNBC, and many, many more.
And because of technology, we missed Fox and Friends, and we missed Fox Business, right? But just because we didn't get the messages in time, so
Right,
there were
and-
many more requests.
Yeah, and the storm, I mean, once it started to hit us, we
Right.
were working against the storm as well. We assisted Mayor Simmons with coordinating these interviews, but I have to say, right there is Brittany Weiner. She came in hours before the storm was going to hit and everything was shut down. She's with Chief Daigle and Mayor Simmons there. And then we have DeWitt, City Manager Swing. Everyone was working together to try to push out information. Our local media did a fantastic job. Tad from the Bonita Banner, consistently calling, working through the storm. Brittany was actually sleeping at the shelter at NBC2, so we appreciate their connections and constantly putting out information for us. As soon as the storm passed, the eye passed Bonita Springs, we began immediately putting out messaging to encourage our residents to stay hunkered down. This was to make sure that they understood that there was still a threat of potential storm surge. Downed power lines and flooding caused areas to be unsafe. So response, recovery, and mitigation. Post-storm, Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District and the Lee County Sheriff's Office began response for life safety. These guys were amazing, guys and girls. They got out there as soon as they possibly could and started taking care of our community. Dispatch roadways, pushed teams to clear debris and obstacles from the city roadway network. We installed hazardous conditions warning signs on streets that were flooded or damaged during the storm, inspected stormwater systems for debris accumulation, removed obstructions that occurred during the storm, continued to work on effecting the removal of trees that had fallen into the river and the Imperial River Bridge, developing a list of Lee County resources of major and minor flowway obstructions and the water level, as the water levels receive for removal under a county contract. Many, many, many more things here. So we also did damage assessment. It's still ongoing. The Fire Control and Rescue District and the City of Bonita Springs has been assessing areas and clearing roadways where possible. Like we mentioned, the push teams were activated immediately, and overall cleanup could take a number of months. Excessive flood areas that we knew as soon as the storm hit, this is just a few lists. A lot of these areas are starting to recede slowly. East Terry from Old 41 to Bonita Grand, Citrus Park, Morton Grove, Kent Road, Quinn Street, Palm Creek Drive, Luke Street, Tarpon Avenue. What we found was a good resource. The Fire Rescue District was kind enough to take us out in their vehicles the morning after the storm hit, and we were able to get photos to show our residents that we weren't just saying don't come back to the city. There were significant blockages and flooding that would really be dangerous for them to do so. So we were able to post those photos immediately, and we got quite a good response of people being appreciative they were up so quickly. We had power lines and trees down, Southern Pines Drive, Hickory Boulevard, Bonita Beach Road, Earl Road, and Princess Lane. Lee County Emergency Management worked to set up points of distribution where residents could come for water and other essential items. Some roads were still flooded and maybe impassable, and they also started doing well-being checks, as well as our fire department and sheriff's office. You'll hear more from them shortly. Flood assessments are ongoing. Streets are 99% cleared of obstructions. We continue to monitor flooding. As floodwaters recedes, we will be removing additional roadway obstructions in affected areas. Debris removal. Regular household garbage collections have begun and will continue to proceed on the regularly scheduled collection days. The City of Bonita Springs contractors began on Monday to September 18th for debris removal, and you can find more information on the city website and the city Facebook and Nextdoor as to how to do your debris removal. Lee County business owners can get FEMA assistance. They can go to the Gov Disaster-Assistance. Building assessments. Building officials and inspectors began a citywide assessment of structural damage. Those inspections continue this week. The following building permits have been approved to be waived. This would be screen enclosures, roofing permits, single-family, multifamily, and sheds. For more information, you can talk to our community development department. Recovery. We will be in this phase for quite a while, and as you heard from our community, they are coming together to help us. We have the assistance office working locally. The county also has resources through 211 with a multitude of nonprofit agencies that are coming together, like we heard earlier. Red Cross, Salvation Army, Harry Chapin, Catholic Charities. We also have our Fire Rescue and Control District, along with the City of Bonita Springs staff, has been out in these areas, taking out the messaging, handing them to the residents as much as possible. Assisting, we've gotten calls, it's amazing, from people up north that have put together trucks, tractor-trailer trucks full of supplies. They just called up our city and said, hey, within the same hour I got 2 calls. One said, I just want to come up there. We're going to be there in 2 to 3 days. We're going to bring you a tractor trailer full of supplies. We're going to give you diapers and food and everything that we could possibly gather for you, and we just need to know where to send it. Not even an hour later, I get another message from David Zimmerman. He was saying that he got in contact with someone on Instagram who was doing the same thing. I thought it was the same truck. It wasn't. So we have people from Mississippi and Indiana who are sending supplies down. The assistance office put one of the truckers up and kept him overnight, and then got all the supplies to distribute to our residents, and the other one will be here in a couple of days. So we still have the EOC resources. Some other things the city did, all of the staff working together, put together childcare. Sports Club opened up Bonita Springs Recreation Center on Monday, September 18th, to assist with childcare. We have Mayor Simmons working to host the FEMA Town Hall meeting that you heard him talk about earlier. Assistant Manager Hunter also worked with charging and cooling stations set up for our residents to get them out of the heat. And these are a few folks that actually came and enjoyed it, and we're very grateful to be there in the AC. The food and water points, as we mentioned earlier, were open in Lee County. Ours was here at the Naples-Fort Myers Dog Track. That is still open. Here's some of our National Guard that were there to assist our residents and help them. We also have an update from the Lee County Mosquito Control District. They are adding treatments to control adult mosquitoes, which began on Monday between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. So we urge residents to wear repellent and just to be aware that there will be an increased population of mosquitoes in our area due to the storm. FPL obviously is here. We coordinated with them to have a customer service station at City Hall to try to help our residents understand when power would come back on. The swim advisory has been lifted as of this morning. And we would like again to thank our Lee County Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management, Betsy Clayton, their PIO was amazing, Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District, and Bonita Springs Utilities, as well as our city council and our city staff for being a team during this time. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Great. I just, Mr. Mayor, as we continue, I just want to say a couple of more words about Laura because keeping up with all this information is very, very difficult. And then to have to turn it around, make it concise, keep it understandable, and ship it back out to our residents is incredible. So thank you, Laura, for your efforts during this. What I'd like to do now is call up Captain Blake Lee of Delta District, South District in the Sheriff's Office to give you a little bit of information that he has with regards to the Sheriff's efforts. Sure, absolutely, that'd be great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Captain.
It's been a long several days, and thank God we're all here. Either way, just what I'd like to do first of all, as a resident of Bonita Springs, I want you all to know that I appreciate your leadership, and I could not be happier and more proud of what it is that the city has actually accomplished in as a result of this event. So you all have done a phenomenal job. I've worked very closely with all the members of the city, and City Manager Schwing has done an outstanding job. His assistant manager, Arlene, has done great, and everybody else. And it's part of that partnership coming together in a time of need that has actually made this entire operation pretty much seamless, and everything has come together dramatically well. Having said that, I also, and which is of the utmost importance, is to recognize those members of the community that have actually stepped up, and as they had mentioned earlier, sort of looking at the post-recovery aspect of things, that's imperative. We were all there as first responders, for the initial aspect of it. We became involved. We did what we had to do. However, this is long-term, and having members of the community being there, stepping up, and helping those in need is very important. And having said all that, we do need to continue to pray for those that have been severely affected. There are families that are out there. My power just came back yesterday, so it made a very big difference in my life, but I know that there's many other families that not only do they not have power, but they won't have a home where to go back to. So we definitely need to keep those people in our thoughts. I can tell you that having been here through Hurricane Charlie, this is an absolutely different experience this time around. Once again, to the credit of the city, your staff, and the community coming together to go ahead and help. There were difficulties, as we were talking about, as far as communications and the rest, but those have all been overcome. I can tell you that Chief Daigle and I have, and Lieutenant Presbolewski as well, for many years, my 25 years of experience, we have done a lot of training when it comes to incident management. We have a lot of tabletop exercises preparing for some of those situations that might occur during these events. And I can tell you that not only did that training come in hand, but we did have some issues that we never trained for because we never expected them. But then again, as a team, everybody came together, we overcame those difficulties, and we are where we are today. Briefly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis of what the Sheriff's Office did during this time. I'm sure that Chief Daigle will also have information for you as well. And once again, as first responders, we did mirror a lot of the work. But the Lee County Sheriff's Office and I, who specifically speak for South District, which is my command, conducted pre-storm planning and procurement in preparation for the storm. Since the onset of our activation, we have continued to work very closely with the manager of the city of Bonita Springs, his assistant manager, and the staff, as well as Chief Daigle and the Bonita Springs Fire and Rescue. We pre-staged our first responders in critical locations to allow for the rapid deployment of personnel and equipment immediately following the event. Furthermore, our resources were reallocated in support of the evacuation process. Deputies were sent from neighborhood to neighborhood announcing the evacuation order issued by EOC. This was done to assist those that may not have received the information via electronic means, such as radio, TV, media, and social media as well. As this was being conducted, we were also deploying deputies to shelters to assist with the evolutionary phase of the evacuation process. A major augmentation of personnel was assigned to the district, and deputies continued answering calls for service and assisting in evacuations until tropical storm winds arrived. Once the hurricane and tropical force winds had subsided, deputies were immediately deployed as emergency response teams to the impacted areas throughout the county. Their primary responsibilities were to assist with search and rescue missions, damage assessment missions, property preservation, and ultimately humanitarian missions. During the ensuing days, we conducted hundreds of missions and rescued dozens of people from their home. Some of these people who originally did not heed the evacuation order and exposed themselves to peril remaining in their homes. Regardless, all these people were assisted and brought to safety. We conducted numerous safety sweeps throughout the area and requested the assistance of the National Guard's LMTVs, which are their high water vehicles, to augment the Lee County Sheriff's Office resources and assisted us with accessing those flooded neighborhoods. In addition to their equipment, the Lee County Sheriff's Office resources included the use of patrol vehicles, including high water recovery vehicles, a dump truck, boats, ATVs, helicopters, and a swamp buggy. Even though the water levels in certain areas had exceeded 36 to 40 inches, thankfully the water has retreated significantly, and we now have full access to a significant portion of the city. All our resources were brought to bear, and our men and women rose to the call and proudly did their very best for our community. During our numerous recovery missions, our deputies distributed 7 pallets of MREs, in other words, 4,036 individual meals, and over 13,000 bottles of water, which were all handed out in the field to people in need. In closing, I witnessed many heroic efforts by deputies and my colleagues alike, and am very proud of what we accomplished as an agency and as a city. We came together as a community of first responders alongside our brothers and sisters of Bonita Springs Fire and Rescue, as well as that of EMS. All of us shared the same goal, which is to work inexhaustible hours to protect, serve, and safeguard our battered community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chief.
A lot of this bears repeating, and I will repeat some of it simply because it is worth it. First, I'd like to say I appreciate the teamwork that everybody you see here between the Sheriff's Office and the city came together. We are separate governments. However, for the first time in my career, I was in an enviable position to be able to be part of such an amazing team, specifically the city staff. Carl did an amazing job, and your leadership was evident, no question. Arlene as well. And like has already been said, Laura Taylor worked as the PIO not only for the city but also the fire department. Her work ethic is unbelievable. And without her, we wouldn't have been able to get our message out as well as we did, and in a unified effort. And interestingly enough, the city manager and myself, after the first flood, had a talk about some lessons we learned from the flood, being our communications and how we were messaging our communications, because we seemed to be running in some parallel races at the time. And we were talking about bringing those together with the Sheriff's Office as well, and that's why you see the 3 logos up there. So we worked that out to make sure that all the messaging was coming out equally, and that is in large part due to the city manager's leadership. And I can't forget the mayor, who did an incredible job, stayed with us throughout the entire storm. And I'm a little reluctant to mention the assistant chief and Councilman DeWitt. He slept the whole
time. Or Matt Feeney. Don't mention him either.
But it really was truly remarkable to see everybody just do their job and do their job remarkably. That everybody, when we came together, we met and everybody broke into their segments of expertise and did their job. It was really impressive. And one of the things I must say is there's no school that you can go to that can teach you what we learned. Without the experience, with the experience, I should say, we are, as a unified government, prepared for the next event that we may face in the future. I need to say, communications, you've heard before. The governor did an amazing job also by telling everybody, along with the mayor, that you have to evacuate. We're set up for the business of emergency communications. That's cell phones, internets, radios. Our cell phones were, like everybody has said, were spotty at best, internet down. Our first line of communications, radios, went down. We lost towers. When you can't communicate, we don't know you're either hurt or injured or what's going on. We can't even communicate with our battalion chiefs. We have to do face-to-face in some instances. So it's not just to protect you during the storm. It's after the storm for us being able to know where the problems are become an issue as well. As an emergency response, I'm going to take a broad view after the storm hit that has been mentioned. We went out directly after the storm hit to do a very broad assessment of what we were looking at, what resources we're going to need, and the expansion of potential rescues, building collapse, swift water rescues, and things like that to be prepared. The sheriff's office and the fire department went out, I believe it was at midnight, 11:30 at midnight, drove the beach to look at the storm surge, which luckily we didn't have much of a storm surge, but that was one of our, as we know, biggest concerns. We were, like the captain said, we train for this year-round. Year-round we train for this and we prepare for this. And I wanted to thank the Board of Fire Commission for building the facilities that we have at the fire district and at the city, and everyone is able to use. They protected us, and they also gave us an area to facility to run the critical infrastructure, rehabilitation and rescues from that facility. I did want to say, post-storm, we activated the USAR team, which is the Urban Search and Rescue Team, Task Force 6, as we scaled down from our large evaluation of the needs. We needed to go in these heavy hit areas, basically house to house, street by street, to see if anybody was in these homes the best that we could. No communications. We're getting calls from out of state telling us that, can you check my mother, my brother, my sister, or whoever else needs help. So it's a very, very arduous task, which we completed. Also, in unison with the city and the sheriff's office, we were able to distribute all the flyers that the city manager had. That was another having communication issue where we talked and said, instead of duplicating the efforts, he said we were going to do that. So if you're going to got the you got the vehicles to be able to do it, it'd be easier if you hand them out. So they did the work, and we provided the manpower to do it, or the staffing to do it. This storm was widespread, so it limited our abilities to bring in outside resources to help. So we were on our own here in the city of Bonita Springs for quite some time. Now, I would like to mention, of course, all the other civic organizations that are doing an amazing job. And I can't tell you how proud I am to be a part of this city and to be in the position to be able to help people and work for have such a great city council that is engaged and willing to go the extra mile. Of course, our partners, the sheriffs. We did have to pull one of the sheriffs out who got his vehicle stuck. I just got to mention that. But thank you so much, and I want to.
Was Prez driving?
No, he wasn't. We might not have pulled him out.
Oh, okay.
I did want to mention that this is an ongoing thing. We're in the emergency response business, just like the sheriffs, and those calls will not stop coming in. They will continue as they always do. And we will guarantee the residents of this city that we will be staffed and trained and have the ability to meet whatever your emergency response needs are at any given time. So thank you for the honor to serve, and thank you, Mayor and City Council, for the opportunity to be able to voice this information.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will, real fast. I got a quick little story. First of all, thank you to the city. I mean,
Prez, where's your hat, buddy?
Oh, I know. I need a haircut too.
Yeah.
The support we got from the city. I mean, this was a whole different ball of wax here. Instead of the community policing, we were in emergency mode, and my boss, I mean, I was stationed down at Fire Station 4 with Joe and Greg there. And let me tell you something. If it happens again, that's a heck of a building. And we were hunkered down. And I remember the mayor coming to me and go, Prez, is this a safe building? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's good. And then when the eyewall came over, I'm like, oh, man. But you know what?
My wife promised me I would ask.
I will go. I will do it again. These guys, the fire department, were awesome. And you know what? We didn't miss a beat. We worked hand in hand. But, you know, we had the support of my boss, and we had to do what we had to do. And the people of Bonita, I mean, that's what we'd do it in second again if it happened next weekend. So hopefully not, but that we would be there.
Right.
But I appreciate all the support from the city. You guys are, I mean, I went through Charlie also, and I was stationed in a different area. And during Charlie up in San Carlos Park area, I didn't see this kind of community support when Charlie came through. The city is doing the right thing, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Prez. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And Carl, if I could, just for a quick second, I'm not sure who you want to call up next, but we have kind of a walk-on with the postmaster of Bonita Springs, and I'm
Right.
not sure how their time schedule is. So
Okay, that'd
if
be
you
fine,
gentlemen
sure.
would like to come forward and tell us about the U.S. Postal Service and anything else you might have, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I'll just call you Postmaster Al. How's that?
That's him.
Because that last name, buddy, boy, I'll never say it right. So thank you for being here.
I'd like to open up, Mayor, folks. My name is Richard L. Barber. I'm the Postmaster and Senior Operating Officer for Naples and Collier County. I represent the Suncoast District for the United States Postal Service, and that district is the largest in the United States. From Daytona to Marco Island, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Dade County line. That's our property and that's our territory. I represent today to bring to your information through Mr. Gukmaris, our Postmaster of Bonita, what the Postal Service is doing for the residents of Bonita Springs who right now are suffering the floods and not being able to get possibly in or out of their home. It's a proven fact that the U.S. mail is the fifth most important thing in the people's life and the sanctity of their mail, and that's what we're here to tell you about. A brief background about myself for quality credentials. I'm the former postmaster of Bonita Springs for 4 years, and I have lived in Bonita Springs for 46 years. I know I don't sound like I have, but I definitely have. And if
You got me beat.
And if you think my accent is bad, you wait for Al to come to the podium.
He's a big Mets fan.
But the bottom line is this. The Postal Service is working long and hard to make the mail available for the flooded areas here in Bonita Springs. Mr. Gukmaris has more about that right now. We'll make it available for the customers as long as possible, as long as it's safe, and for the customer, safe for the postal worker, and we'll get that mail to you on a timely basis. What we're asking for you to do from this end is also to include this in some of those daily or bi-daily news breaks that you send out, the city news, anyone that you could communicate through with your social media versus word, and also word of mouth between you and the residents that you know that are saturated in these areas. Mr. Gukmaris has the areas in hand, and we'll tell you what we're available to do starting immediately for them.
Yes, thank you. And Councilman Forbes?
Yeah, we were at a meeting yesterday, and this wasn't relevant just for that community, but we have a number of communities. Quail West, Worthington is one, I believe IBE is one, where you guys are holding the postage because you can't get in. But a lot of these people, at least they're saying that they have prescriptions that come by mail. So if you could somehow contact like a leader in each one of those communities, or maybe we could help you, we need to get a way where they could take a bulk mail out there and they come to their clubhouse or out in front of the gate where they got dry land to distribute it.
There's Councilman Forbes, there's 2 or 3 ways to do this, and Mr. Gukmaris is carrying with him these very communities, some of them you've talked about, and more.
Yeah.
And we'll have this operation up and running starting today. The big key is to be able to communicate to these people both our way and your way, because it's
Right.
so limited right now, the communications out there.
Great, thank you.
It may be that we'll have to do that hand delivery of information like we.
Pony Express.
Yeah, and I'm qualified.
Yeah, you are. Postmaster, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Board. Good morning, everybody in hall.
Yeah, we had a pretty good hurricane here, and we all probably suffered here. I don't live in Bonita, I live in Cape Coral, but we got similar issues over there.
I think you've got a lot of good information. I would just ask that microphone a little closer.
Okay.
Thank you. No,
Is that better?
no, that's great. Thank you, because
Okay.
this is important.
All right. So, Post Office of Bonita Springs start working Tuesday, next, basically a few days after the hurricane. On Tuesday, we have a few trucks on the street, giving the message to all employees that to all residents that Post Office is running. On Wednesday, all fleet was on the street, looking, observing what we can deliver, what we can reach. So, as of customer service in both offices, as of yesterday, has a full service for the retail at the office near the City Hall and at the office on Old 41. So we have full retail service as of right now. As far as deliveries, we have a few areas like Citrus Park. We can deliver 600. We have no delivery for 600 residents. Worthington Community. Let me see. Worthington Community, about 500 deliveries. IB 215. As that's the fresh data from yesterday night. Okay, and totally. So we have also some streets flooded in areas from the from Imperial out of Imperial Road, and I have a whole map over here, but I can tell you that as far as right now, we have 1,485 no deliveries in Bonita Springs. Okay, all mail is held at the post office, and what we do right now, the post office will be open for all those affected by flooding. They can come. If that's a possibility for them, they can come to the post office. We're open 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 p.m. at the office on Old 41, 26150. Okay?
I'm sorry, Councilman?
Is it possible, I'm just going to name, like IBE or one of these communities, Worthington, that a single person, a responsible person like a president of a board or the general manager can come and pick up the bag of mail? Because if each person that's not getting a delivery has to go down and pick it up, it's not going to work because there's too much water in the streets. And
Absolutely, Mr. Forbes. So the person can come over here, and we definitely help at the post office with the deliveries.
Right.
If that's possible to do for him or her.
Good.
Okay.
We have to get an authorization letter from the person picking up, a qualified person from that community, and we have to authorize that to be allowed. The Postal Service will not give anyone's mail out in just the good intentions this is.
Yes.
We still have to consider sanctity and security and privacy of the mail.
So you need from each person that's maybe trying to get their prescription and
No,
can't
no,
get.
not from each person. We need let me try that. We need a representative from the community, a park manager, community board member or whatnot, a request from the Postal Service to be able to pick up mail for these locations in IBE. We'll tender that through the Suncoast District. We'll have to get approval through our legal department. But until that happens, and if that does happen, and until that does, we can be picking up mail on a regular basis at the post office individually, and then in turn, we're looking to come to the locations like you're talking about, Councilman Forbes, and hand postal managers, postal workers handing out the mail on site.
The only message is that because of so many deliveries in those areas, so the carriers will not be able to take and at this point to wait with those deliveries in those areas because so many crowded services up there on the main streets, including National Guard and all helpers that get providing to those communities. Okay, that's a safety issue.
Yes, when you said the mail is stored at Old 41, is that the only place?
At this point, yes, Mr. Stephen.
Okay, so Bonita Beach Road it's not stored there.
We working on a ways how accomplish a little bit better, and we communicating with the district. So we'll see what ways a little bit better to work on it. But the ways what Mr. Forbes asked, it's a possibility to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all what I have on this.
So your 1485 is restricted because of water?
Exactly, because of a flooding.
And of course, it's suing debris that's on the street sides right now as well.
Okay.
As the flood waters go down, Mr. Gutmaris's team is checking every day for possible passage into these neighborhoods, including Lake Shalimar.
Right.
Off of East Terry Street, Rue de Pie.
Right,
and
Morton
all those
Grove.
areas,
Right, yeah.
Morton Grove.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Great.
The-
Wonderful.
The longest probably will be the Citrus Park.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Greg, do you have anything?
No, I was just thinking that if they could even do it remotely, even if we couldn't get into communities, maybe get a place like, I'd volunteer at a fire station or something like that for the Worthington area. Maybe if they don't want to go into the Worthington and the Hunters Ridge, make a little remote place and say, hey, on these days, we're going to be here. On Tuesdays, we'll be at the fire department. On Wednesdays, we'll be at City Hall. That way, if it's a little bit closer proximity instead of the old 41 area.
Right. So the similar thing is, what about the Citrus Park? One part of a Citrus Park is serviced by mailroom. So we have a private party over there, so taking the mail to the mailroom and delivering to those boxes, and customers can reach them.
Is that mailroom open right now?
Right.
It's a possibility that we want to look at Citrus Park, the residents that we deliver house to come to that mailroom location, and that be the location where their mail is given out
Correct.
there. Let's see if we can solidify that. Because I didn't know how deep into Citrus Park we can go at this point to right now.
You would know. You can get back to that truck.
Any other question?
Council?
We just, Carl, one thing we talked about is a handle on the number of homes that are affected by the flooding. And so this is a rough litmus test, right? But you probably have boxes that are not open, that are not in your 1485. In other words, people who are, is that number anybody who could get mail or?
No, this is number only
Open
that affected
boxes.
by flooding.
Right, but what I'm getting at is, if you had 50 people or 100 people who are up north, they had closed down their delivery.
No, they
That's
basically.
not is that in this number or not?
No.
It's not, okay.
Those are
So it's
different
more-
on the separate count.
Right,
So
okay.
these are live deliveries.
These are live deliveries.
Right.
All Thanks.
Yeah, Carl?
I just have someone else to introduce. So
Sure.
if there's
Thank you
questions-
very much,
Thank you
gentlemen.
all.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.
Stay in touch, we'll do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So, my last person I'd like to introduce, I think, is John Jenkins from BSU. And of course, John has been challenged and continues to be challenged with service delivery. And that's the intro. How about that, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
You and I are both challenged,
Doing a great
John.
job.
Individuals,
Yeah, right.
Good morning, Mayor,
Morning.
council members. Thank you for the opportunity to come down here and talk about what we've been working through along with your staff for the past 2 weeks. You know, Bonita Springs Utilities is, as you know, a member-owned co-op, so we're not a governmental entity. But we do participate in the NIM system, the National Incident Management System. So what does that mean? Among other things, we have we join in the 2-a-day emergency management briefings that occurred for the past couple of weeks. We communicate through our utility liaison at the county EOC, and we posted up a staff member at Station 4, the fire district, throughout the storm. We also have our own hurricane preparedness plan. So we began to implement that on September 5th, the day after Labor Day, as the storm started to approach. And at some point, we activated our emergency management incident center out at our operations center. So what we did is we had staff members sheltered in place at our water and wastewater plants to maintain operations throughout the storm event. So we had at our 2 water plants 6 staff members and 8 of their family members. We had at our wastewater plants 8 staff members and 3 of their family members. And we had at our operations center 15 staff members and 33 of their family members and assorted pets out at our operations center throughout the storm. We have something of a war room out at our operations center. We monitor activities throughout the storm. That includes hourly check-ins with each of our plants to assess any issues they're having and any storm damage. We deal with issues as they arise, and we plan for and began our assessment and recovery phases. We had 4 two-man crews go out Sunday night immediately after the storm to begin to assess the damage and determine how we could initiate repairs. And that included myself, and not among those, another trip was made by myself and Andy Keeble, our operations director. From a water supply standpoint, we maintain water service throughout the service area for the duration of the storm and since, except for the beaches area, Big Hickory, Little Hickory, Black Island, up to Fort Myers Beach. We did make a decision to cut off service out there because, one, it was evacuation zone A, so for several days beforehand there shouldn't have been anybody living out there. 2, it was predicted to have catastrophic storm surge, which we thought would cause some problems. And in doing so, we attempted to protect the integrity of our system out there, the private property on the island, and the water supply in the rest of the city as a whole. So fortunately, the beaches made out fine. The storm surge didn't materialize. We were able to go back in the following day on Monday afternoon and restore water service out there throughout the beach area. And we did have a boil water notice in that area only for a couple of days following the restoration of water service. It was only in that area where we had boil water notices. We had a lot of questions from residents. Do I need to boil water? What do I need to do? But that was not necessary and is not necessary anywhere in the community at this point. And everybody should have water unless they're, let's say, on a well and they don't have power restored, or they're in an area where they can't get back to their homes. As far as power supply goes, we switched over to our generator power on Saturday night as the storm came in. We do that because if we get disconnected from FP&L power, that can be kind of messy. That can have power surges. It can have interruption of service and resumption of service. The way we can assure steady power to our plants are to switch over to our generators, and we've maintained that for quite some time after the storm. Our West plant had power restored by FP&L on Wednesday the 13th. Our East plant and operations center the following day. However, the power was not full 3-phase power. We have a lot of mechanical equipment, electromechanical equipment, electronics, instrumentation. We've got to have full 3-phase power in order for us to properly operate. So as it stands today, our East wastewater plant continues to operate on generator power. So one of the priorities for us is to get that full 3-phase power out to the East plant as soon as possible. As you all know, several of you may know, our water plant was in the same situation. We only FP&L restored power to the water plant Sunday evening, as a matter of fact. So one of our lessons learned in all this is we've got to make some of these essential services clear to the EOC folks and FP&L so we can get those restored, because if we run out of water for the city, even though they may have power, we're going to add to our problems in terms of the recovery effort.
John, can you just interrupt for a second? So I have the same question you have on that. I actually thought one of the top priorities, not directed to you, but generically here, is that was to get up essential services. Now I heard them mentioning hospitals and stuff, so what do you think?
Yeah, we'll sit down with FP&L after the fact and sort that out. I will say, in their defense, with regard to the water plant, our feeds come from 2 directions. One is immediately to the south, where really the worst of the flooding occurred, and then immediately to the north, which is along the Southern Pines corridor. And that's where there was an entire row of power poles down in the street.
Gotcha.
So they may have had some additional challenges and put off restoring power there until we went to them and said, look, you need to understand that this connects to the water plant and we've got to get this online. I will give them credit. It was pretty impressive. At one point they had taken 6 cranes and lined them up on the Marnie soccer fields, and along with other equipment lifted the entire row of power poles up off of Southern Pines all at the same time to get power restored out there. So we know they were working hard at it,
no,
but
sure.
in the future we've got to figure out a better way to take care of that issue. And I do thank you and the city staff. We were reaching out to everybody trying to figure out how best to approach FP&L and get their attention on that, and I thank you for helping in that.
Thank you.
Our water treatment plant only sustained minor damage. Immediately following the storm, our staff did struggle to maintain water service. At one point, we went from pumping about 3,500 gallons per minute to 8,000 gallons per minute. So that told us we either had some large water main breaks in the service area or many, many small breaks, and it turned out to be the latter. We did, within 24-hour period, have a situation where we got additional generators out to the wells that we needed. We got increased capacity out of our RO plant, and we had our distribution staff out in force to cut off the broken lines. Now, they didn't make repairs at the time. They just stopped the bleeding so that we could maintain water service. And they were able to turn things around and get us in a position where the demand for water was not exceeding our ability to supply it, and we got things under control. So our operations staff at the water plant and our distribution staff did a great job in that regard. We also, just to let people know, remind them, have 2 interconnects for emergency water service. We have actually 4 interconnects, 2 with Lee County and 2 with Collier County. 2 of them are out on the beach, 1 at the bridge to Fort Myers Beach with Lee County, 1 at the Barefoot Beach traffic light in that area to Collier County. And then we have a emergency interconnect on Highway 41 with Lee County and down at Livingston and Imperial Parkway, at the Collier County line. We did contact Lee County about possibly the need to open the interconnect on 41, but as it turns out, we were able to maintain our water supply, and we didn't have to do that. On the wastewater side, the plants also sustained only minor damage. We did have, just by way of some of the issues we dealt with, we did have a gust of wind out at the east plant, which actually lifted and twisted the generator that was powering the plant at the time. And if you can imagine, this is the size of a mobile home. It is like a locomotive out there running these plants, and it actually got twisted on its pedestal, and it stopped operating. So during the eye of the storm, the East Plant staff went out there, got it out of automatic mode, got it into standard operation mode, were able to restart it, and began to restart the plant as the storm came back in. We've had power out to all 332 lift stations throughout the city and up into Estero, where we serve. At this time, we have power restored to over 90% of those. Only about 25 remain without power. We have permanent generators at about 25 of the master lift stations, so those kicked in and operated right away. We have a fleet of portable generators that went around throughout the city, pumping down the lift stations in each community in order to maintain wastewater service until power was restored. We had our utility maintenance staff out on 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day for the past week until I think maybe Monday night, pumping down these lift stations to maintain wastewater service. Probably our remaining issues are the resumption of power to the East Plant and restarting wastewater service to those areas inundated with water. And you've talked about a number of those. We've actually started our lift stations down at McDonald's because there are several commercial establishments right there in addition to the Oakland Avenue area that's inundated. We have not started it yet to Flamingo Island. We have We do have the pump stations up at Coconut, out at Morton Grove. And we, I just got an update while I was here. We've got IBE pump station up, and we're going to try to start pumping out of Flamingo Island and Saunders today, even though that's going to be all river water coming. So you're welcome for helping drain the area through our wastewater plants out there. It was a challenge for a time to get fuel. We were burning through 6,000 to 7,000 gallons a day of diesel fuel to operate our generators. Fortunately, Palmdale and our suppliers were able to maintain our supply throughout. Unleaded gas was a bit of a challenge there for a while, as you all know, around town. Fortunately, we have over 20 trucks now that are on compressed natural gas, the CNG, and that was maintained throughout, and so we were able to have that fleet out. We were also able to maintain our the unleaded gas, and I thank Councilman DeWitt and Arlene. We reached out to them at one point, and the fire department agreed to reserve fuel that they had available if we needed it. And fortunately, we got some gas stations, including the Marathon station up at Corkscrew and 41. So we'll give a shout out to Patel up there, who we call him the Marathon Man. He gave us a priority pump, and we got our fleet through there and helped us out on that occasion. We had two SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows. The first was over at the Bonita Grand lift station, which is right there at Beach Road and Bonita Grand. You see it across from the street from the construction. What happened was the FP&L kicked on a bunch of lift stations out east on Beach Road, and the flow started coming in all of a sudden to the master. And so we had about a 4,000 gallon spill out there, which we consider very minor. That was cleaned up, but frankly, the area is inundated there. It's the water's just flowing right through, and so that was I'm sure diluted shortly after. We also had a spill at our wastewater plant due to a mechanical failure at our master lift station at the West plant. However, that was maintained on site and cleaned up, never was off the site. And really, all in all, did real well as far as the wastewater side was concerned, considering some of the issues that they're having in Collier County and elsewhere. We do get a lot of reports now about the sewage smell.
Right.
And, you know, people need to be smart about this. I mean, there is bacteria out there. There is fecal coliform. It is just the nature of a storm event like this, where you've got all sorts of matter that's flowing across our community. For the most part, however, what you're smelling is decaying organic matter as these ponds and these flooded areas dry up. And we're going to get that all over town. I mean, you can go out east where there is no wastewater customers or service. You can go in a variety of places. We're just going to have that, and that's really what we're talking about here, is this decaying organic matter and these, frankly, some of this nasty swamp water that's drying out. And so I just want to try and let people know that that's kind of what they're going to have to deal with here for the next period of time until we get dried out.
John, would it be fair to say that probably there's a lot more of that fecal matter from septic tanks that have failed or underwater and all that than anything that could have come out of these little spills you've had?
Oh yeah, I don't think it's as a result of our spills. This is something that's just sweeping in from the east. I mean, we're in the middle of an area that's bringing in a lot of floodwaters. I'm sure there's some as a result of septic tanks, and some as a result of we've got cow pastures and other areas that are inundated that are flowing across the property. You're gonna see that.
Yep.
I'll wrap up by I want to join in, echo some of the comments today, thanking our first responders and the aid organizations and the folks that have been out there. But I also want to recognize some unsung heroes, as I think of them. First, to thank our staff. I mean, we had plant operators that were on duty, 48 hours and more throughout the storm, maintaining services out there. We had our field staff come in force on Monday morning. And these, you know, I mean, we talk about FP&L and they bring in a lot of people from all over the state and the country to help out, but these guys are your neighbors. I mean, they live here in Bonita. They live in Lehigh, in Cape Coral, in, down in Golden Gate Estates. I mean, they're in a dozen other areas around here, and they have the same issues the rest of us have. They have no power. They have damage to their homes. They have families to concern themselves with, and they come in and they're very loyal to BSU, and they're very dedicated to the community, and I think you all would be real proud of them, and I know that I am, and the work that they're doing to try and help out here as they too try and deal with their individual issues. And we have staff members out at the OSC. They've been preparing meals, 2 hot meals a day and a third meal for our staff for the past week, so these guys can work their 12-hour shifts and come in and eat and get back out there, and especially for the guys working the 24 hours overnights. So, all those things are going on right here in our community as well. And I'd like to compliment the council and your staff. I know firsthand because I've been out there and I've seen you all, and I know how hard you're working, and I know at times it can be a thankless job, especially when there's not a whole lot you can do to help somebody out with the problem they have. But your staff has been great to work with here, helpful in putting out our information through Laura and your channels to try and communicate what we have with our residents. We're still in the recovery phase, but I didn't give you all the details that we've been going through for the past couple of weeks, but just wanted to let you know that what we've been up to, and to thank you all for the good work you're doing here, and to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. Council?
John, just one question. I'm actually also getting texts asking this. It's the question about, do you still want people to go easy on using water, or is that okay now with respect to...
I think we're doing pretty well with our flows at the wastewater plants. That has not been an issue.
Okay.
Unlike the flooding we had a month ago where everything came in at once, the fact that power has been restored gradually over the past week throughout the community has helped us maintain our wastewater plants and not have any issues out there. So I think we're in good shape, except for areas where you're still seeing flooding, still seeing inundation. In those areas, we're going to have some localized problems, because even if have our pump stations working, it's pumping a lot of stormwater that's in the system, and we're doing that to try and allow people to continue to flush their toilets and have some basic wastewater service. But particularly in those areas, we are still saying, please, try and limit your washes. We know people, first thing they do, they get power on, they're
laundry,
throwing everything in the laundry and cleaning things up, and limit that. Dishwashers, take short showers, do all those things you can do to minimize water use. Yes.
So if you're not in those flooded areas now, you're okay?
You're in yes, you're in good shape.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you for the water.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yes.
ask a question? So, John, during the first flood, when we started seeing some notices come out about releases and those kinds of things, and could you talk about those and talk about how they are different from the spills you just talked about?
Sure. The flooding we had a month ago caused huge inflow of stormwater into our wastewater system all at once, and all of our pump stations were working, and so our plants that normally would be treating, say, 5 or 6 million gallons of wastewater a day, at one point we're treating over 12 million gallons. Jeez. So these were some real peak flow conditions. In addition, the entire community was full of water, and so our normal areas to dispose of our wastewater effluent, the byproduct of the treatment process, it goes out into lakes, and it's pumped on to irrigate golf courses, lawns, and so forth, and that wasn't happening because there was already too much water on the ground. So what we did was we still, through our partner RCS, were able to put 2 or 3 million gallons a day of water out in their irrigation system. We have a deep injection well where we pumped between 5 and 6 million gallons of water a day, and that is that's our backup for disposal. And then finally, when there was nowhere else to put it, this wastewater, and it was fully treated. This is the water that would otherwise be going on your front lawn to irrigate. We had an intentional overflow from our east plant into the ditch on the east side of Highway 75, and returned it to the environment that way. So in this case, we have not had occasion to do that, but we also gave notice to DEP a month ago that that's what we were doing with the fully treated wastewater in order to find some additional effluent disposal capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's the end of my list. I just have a couple of comments real quick, and that is that as difficult as this storm has been on a lot of residents, we really missed the bad one. Because, and we watched it. We watched it from the EOC. And if that eye wall hadn't broken down on the back end of the storm, we would be dealing with catastrophic storm surge. And thankfully, that did not happen. So as difficult as this is, it could have been a lot worse. I'm thankful that it's not.
Right.
So, now I know it's also attached to this topic, sir, is a memo from Councilmember Carumba with regards to a number of observations she had. I didn't know if you wanted to wait until her return to do that, but that's also kind of in the mix here. So whatever council wants to do with that.
Right. Council, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to wait, and because I read through it, and I think some of the other things that I'd rather wait for Amy to be here. Plus, I think we're going to have a post hot wash, like we call it, the fire department with the city and with the sheriff's office, and some of these things may get brought up there and have solid answers instead of us saying, well, what can we do? We'll address them during our hot wash at the fire department, the city, and the sheriff's office. So I'd like to do it.
I think that's great, Greg. Thank you. Yeah, Fred?
Mr. Mayor, I agree in general, but I think the city needs to have postmortem. We need our own. We have things that we did great. Everybody worked hard. I mean, in Arlene's case, I can say on her twin's birthday, she was in working for the city Sunday. But there's a lot of things that we can improve, and piggybacking on what Carl said, we were handed a gift before Christmas by what happened with that storm. Had that storm hit us at 125, the wind force would have been 56% stronger than it was. If it had simply gone to 135, which was forecast, 82%, nearly double. Most of the people in here would have lost their roofs. So we need to have a postmortem on the city part, which would then spill over to what could we ask the county to do a little better and so on. But that is needed to be done, and I would suggest we could do it by maybe just some posted sessions in room 118 where whatever council members were available can come in and give their observations, and they have to be recorded, the notes and the minutes, and that way those that couldn't will see what happened. But I think sooner is better.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete?
I just had a few questions here and there. On the sports club, I think when that slide went up, it said registration fees being waived, but there's still a fee. And I'm just wondering for people who are flooded out, if some accommodation can be made for those families.
At this point, Sports Club does have a fee of $90 for the week or $18 per day. They do scholarship based on need, so if there is a need, they do need to contact Sports Club, but they will make accommodations.
All right. Well, maybe if it was I would counsel, if Carl, you can look into that a little more and see if
Yes,
if
we'll be
flooded
happy
out.
to, as long as council understands that would be a city expense. I mean,
Right.
we still have to pay Sports Club, but if council's intent is that we try to be very careful about and sensitive to their needs,
Right.
we're happy to
I mean, I
do
think if you
that.
flooded out of your home.
We're
it's-
happy to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, positively.
Other thing is, I know this is would be a health service thing of some sort, but Do you know if they're doing bacterial counts or whatever they're supposed, would be normal? We saw what Lee County did with respect to the Gulf, but with respect to these areas that are flooded,
We can check on that, sir,
Okay, I
see
think
what the
that-
status
that'd
is.
be helpful.
Because I'm sure that's the health department, but we'll
yeah,
get with them.
yeah, it's fecal
Yep.
coliform, et
Uh-huh.
cetera. And at some point, do you want to have a more general discussion, or is this the time? Or is
We
what do you
can
want?
go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
well, just, I think in terms of going forward, and obviously we'll do more of that at later meetings, but I think Ms. Polanitsa hit the nail absolutely on the head with respect to what we have here. I mean, we had the 95 flood, a lot of work came out of that. Critical crew actually is, I was told yesterday by the Water Management District, almost complete. So that part has been done. But there's obviously a lot to do, starting with working to retain more water on the land. I mean, that aspect of what goes on here is a microcosm of what you had in Houston. We've had a lot of development take up a lot of land that otherwise could be used for storage. And obviously, we've had in the past big initiatives here to take land, thankfully defeated, to take land that is environmentally sensitive for storage and develop it. One thing that's kind of got lost in the shuffle of this is the tremendous news about Edison Farms, which is, right north of us. Thank God that's going to be preserved, and I would be hopeful that they look, whether it's the county or whatever our involvement would be into more appropriate storage up there. Not storage so that we have to worry about a dike exploding and people being flooded, but holding more water on the land. So I think that's a big thing that we have to move forward on, not today, but just to think about. It actually was one of our initiatives in our first city council meeting, one of our top initiatives. And then there are other elements, and I'll try to be brief. To me, things that are coming out, like the meeting we had yesterday at Worthington, and it's Fred's district, I'll let him speak to it, but as an example, a harder look. We know the individual communities are responsible to set up with the management district their own stormwater systems. But it is a fact that there is flooding that even a layman like myself, after brief chats with engineers, can understand could be ameliorated, or at least we ought to be working with them to help ameliorate in the future. So I mean, we have a situation there where we have lakes equalized with a swale, which is equalized with the Imperial River. So they're basically having to, their outfall is into a river that is higher than their system. Yeah, it doesn't take a genius to understand how that might not work. And then I guess one other point is where we have this flooding, for example, on Quinn, IBE, et cetera, ashamed to say et cetera, working on localized fixes there. I'm sure there's more, but I just wanted to add those thoughts.
Right. Thank you. Fred?
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is, and this has been said in the past during the Water Task Force, was said today by some of the speakers, the answer to controlling this flooding is not to send more water in the flowways and clean them out, because that's simply going to flood everything west of I-75. And you know what? One of the reasons it's got more water now than we've had in the past is because there's been more land that traditionally held a foot and 18 inches of water that has been pulled out, filled, developed, and they only have to hold 1.5 inches of water. 1.5 inches. Just think about that.
Yeah,
Mr.
Carl.
Mayor, I know we've been at this for a while. It's an important topic. There's one person I forgot to call up, if you'd be okay with hearing
Sure.
it, and that is Director Perino with Parks and Recreation, to give you a brief assessment of how our parks and our facilities fared
Sure.
through this. Okay, so Nicole?
Good morning, Nicole Perino, Parks and Recreation Director. We have assessed all of our 21 parks and some private lots, well, not private, our lots that are not parks. The parks themselves didn't fare too well, not as well as we had hoped. We do not have any of them completely reopened. We are working on it. The 6 of them are still completely underwater, so we haven't been able to get in to assess. The nature place we can get in to assess by a large truck. The house itself is fine, but the rest of the property has some damage. Cullum's Trail, we can't get to, things like that. Most of you have probably seen, if you've gone near I-75, that Marnie Fields are completely underwater. That one will most likely be a total loss for us. They're completely destroyed. There's really no coming back from that much water, so we will have to redo those fields completely. Community Park, we do have reopened parts of the recreation center just for sports club. We're hoping, well, we are going to open the rest of the rec center on Friday. It does have water damage, but we've pulled up carpets, tiles, things like that did get damaged and ripped them out. They won't be replaced at this point, but we will be able to reopen to the public. The pool suffered some pretty major damage with lights. The pool pump itself, we had some issues with. That we have now known as an FPL issue. They're putting in a little too much power and the pump's shutting off. So I can't reopen the pool until FPL can get out to look at that. I know that's not a huge priority from them at this point. It's more getting everyone else up. So that may be one of the last facilities that we get up and running again, just because I have to have the pump running. In every park, fences are down, so that's an issue that we're working on getting fixed. Large major trees, if you go near the Lyles Hotel, we lost the giant banyan tree there. The boardwalks, the new dock, everything is still completely underwater. But the artist cottages are completely fine, no damage to any of those, as well as the Lyles Hotel. No issues. The fountain did suffer some problems, and we're getting that looked at and see where we can go from there. Matt is using Gerald's tree service to remove all of the trees from the roads first before they come to the park. So any of the large trees, our staff doesn't have the capability. We don't have cranes and things like that. So that those large items will take a little longer to get removed. But any of the small limbs, all of that, the debris is being pulled onto the road so that they can be picked up when it's possible to do so. The baseball field lights did not fare well at all. They are leaning. So we do have to get a structural engineer out to take a look and see if those poles need replaced. So that's why the baseball fields are not reopened yet as well, until we can make sure those are structurally safe. Playgrounds, the Mayhood Park, the dog park, the back half is underwater. The front half has large tree damage. So we haven't reopened the dog park until the water goes down, or at least until we can get the large tree off the small dog section, because then we could possibly just open parts of things. The new playground there, of course, is underwater, but it's still standing. So we have waded through the water to take a look at it, and it does seem like it's fared pretty well. So things seem to be pretty well, but it is going to take some time before we get back up and running normally. So at this point, the only parks that we have fully opened are the 2 at the beach, and that's just due to mainly their parking lots. So Bay Park North and Beach Park are both reopened, but other than that, we do not have any at this time. The bandshell is okay. Yes, and the Veterans Memorial did suffer major damage. It has completely fallen over. The base of it has shifted and come off and come apart. So that is a piece that did suffer major damage. Other art pieces, the only one that suffered any damage was the Bird of Flight at River Park, and we have reached out to the artist to see how that can be fixed. But the other pieces seem to have done very well, which we are pleased about. So, but yes, the bandshell is completely fine. That park actually looks very nice. If you go there in that section, it was cleaned up. We did have JRC come out and help our staff with that one and get it up and going as quickly as possible. So that section of Riverside Park is open and available, just not the park by the Lyles Hotel, because that still is underwater.
Thank you. And I guess and along those lines, I'm not sure many people were planning on this Saturday, but unfortunately we've had to cancel the Major League Baseball Mayor's Challenge. So I was obviously on a personal note looking forward to that, but we will regroup and do that another time. So
Absolutely.
unfortunately the baseball fields, we're not able to do that.
Yes.
But
And we don't have our programming up and going at the rec center at this time. We are opening just for use of the gym, but the classes, we're still trying to get our instructors back, and because they also have their own homes and damage and things like that. So that won't be running completely normal classes and programs on Friday when we reopen, but we're trying to get that back together as soon as possible.
Right. Council, Fred, did you have something?
Well, I know we had a relationship with Y this summer. Are right now, at least in the next month or so, is that continuing to where if you're going to have a lot more people than you can handle in your place, that the overload can go down to the Y, and it will probably cost us a little bit of money, but I think it's better to have people occupied and doing constructive things than otherwise.
At this time of year, we're not going to have the overflow because we don't have the people back. So we would be able to handle in our capacity since we are opening on Friday. So we shouldn't have any issues with any sort of capacity problems until we hit January again, when we come back, and then we will need to look at that again with the Y.
Would you let us know if we do need to do it?
Sure, absolutely.
Council,
Nicole, do you
anything
have
else?
any estimate about the Veterans Monument in terms of a time when it can be repaired?
We have to get someone out to take a look at that. We're trying to reach out to the company that actually built it and see how it can be built. It's in some pieces, so we do need a crane and things like that. At this point, I can't see the back of it, so I don't know what damage it is, but it is buried into the ground somewhat because of how hard it hit, but it did hit the fencing. So that's why I don't know what's damaged on the back part until we can get a crane.
Right.
But it will have to be reconstructed in some points because the rebar in the middle didn't hold. So that was the major issue that we had, and I'm not sure exactly how they're going to fix that since it's already created. So I don't know how they're going to redo it, but at this point, we're not sure if they're going to have to remake it or if it can be fixed. We're not sure at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
And one or
Okay,
two
that
other-
sounded good.
one
Sorry.
or two
That's
other
all I
quick-
have.
Quick things. Carl, if you, do we have a rough number? I mean, we're just playing off of Richard Barber's number there of the number of homes that are affected by water in the sense of they can't get in, or they're 3 feet in, or more.
We are going to have a complete picture of that Thursday of this week.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
All right.
Or they'll finish up. Because what we found out, another one of those things that, opportunities for improvement for the future, is that there were a number of people going in, fire department, other people going and assessing for certain things.
Right.
But it really wasn't the picture we were looking for.
Gotcha.
So we are now conducting that assessment now. Obviously, some of the water is receding. You can see where it's been.
Okay.
So we'll have some more information by the end of the week on that.
Thank you. And one
Okay.
really kind of detailed, but I might as well get. In the midst of this, I did hear, I don't know if it's correct or not, but can you check in and check and see in the state lands east of Bonita Grande, are there lands that they're surplusing and trying to actually sell there? Can you check into that?
Sure, absolutely.
And the same goes for Beach Road.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of odd. I mean, they spent $30 million out east buying all that property. And
Right.
So, but maybe it's just a rumor.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. Sure.
And I
Thank
might
you.
add, that land is holding water right now.
Oh, there is land?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, I heard there's a rumor, so. All right, thank you, Carl.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, we good with this portion? We'll go back then, I think, to item B, which is recognition of finance staff on being awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And this is Green Sheet 17090330.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Ann.
Good morning, Council. Ann Wright, Finance Director. The city was recently notified by the Government Finance Officers Association that the comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year ended September 30, 2016 qualifies for a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by the finance staff. This is the 8th consecutive year that the city has received this award. Recognition and sincere appreciation are extended to the finance staff on this achievement, and I do have some of the finance staff in the back of the room. I'd ask for them to stand. Others are in the office and listening to the meeting as well. If you could, oh, they're all here. Okay, they came back. Thank
Great
you.
work.
Thank
Great
you.
work. Thank you, team. Thank you very, very much. And congratulations once again. Okay, we're going to move on now, I think, to item 7 here, the consent agenda. And I don't think, there isn't one.
This is historic.
Wow.
So moved.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Second.
Do a roll call.
Further discussion? Do we need a roll call?
Nothing.
Yeah, I'm just checking, just checking. All right, mayor and council member items. We've got an errata sheet here from Councilman Fred Forbes, which is green sheet 17-090359. Fred.
Yep, basically, and I'm trying to be sensitive to the Wonder Gardens board, as well as our citizens and our taxpayers and all that. The Wonder Garden was seriously beaten up by the hurricane at best. And what I've proposed is we need to quickly determine what the cost to restore it, if you want to call it that, is going to be versus what the insurance proceeds are going to be. And that will, hopefully there won't be a shortfall. If there is a shortfall, then we'll at least know what it is, and it's got to be a council decision that, are we going to expend more money to bring it back or whatever? And what I propose, there's a couple ways we could do it. And I think probably what I'm going to propose, which is a slight modification, is that we take the insurance policy, which we just got this today, and hopefully there, Audrey's got, I know she's asked for a copy from the insurance company officially, I believe, but we would take that, look at the coverage that's in it, and then perhaps our chief building official could go over, and perhaps myself, I am an architect, and we can make an initial look, see what we think, and then if it depending on what Pete says primarily, we may need to employ a small construction manager, which is their initial and sole task in the beginning would be to determine their best estimate of what it would cost to restore it. Once we have that and we know what the insurance is, we will have more information. And the sooner we do this, the better it is for them, because the Wonder Gardens, I believe they have a fundraiser that they're going to do in November, I believe, isn't it, Carl?
Yes, is Thomas gone?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that.
I think Jennifer, his wife, told me that they have one that's going to be in November. I think it's in cooperation with the microbrewery that we have, I believe.
Right, Momentum.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so they need to know what's going on, and we need to know what's going on. Sooner is better than later, and the one thing that will come into this will be, how much what costs to fix versus what, once you pass a certain percentage of fixing, generally speaking, the code kicks in full force. There may be other areas that won't kick in, even if it doesn't pass that, but that need to be dealt with. Like, I know one thing that's never has had any kind of real fresh air ventilation that would even come close to the codes of 20 years ago. And that's why if you go in there, it's kind of musty, whatever. So anyway, that's it. Is it is it okay to kind of proceed and do something here?
I mean, I think so. I mean, we got to, this isn't chicken and egg, or is it chicken and egg?
No, I mean, we got to know where we are before we can find a way out. I mean,
right.
We're either going to be restoring it, or we'd have to look at other options depending on the cost. And that's going to be what the vote of council is. Obviously, we want to preserve it if we can. But it may not, I'm sure it will be feasible, but it may not be.
Do we have a sense of, you want to talk, I know in my mind in limbo, but in limbo at the moment, right, for an ultimate answer and an ultimate solution there, and how that dissects and interacts with the insurance company. Do you have thoughts along those lines, Carl?
Well, I mean, just a reminder to council, you're all aware that we are still the bank, okay, for that facility. We don't own it. We don't control it. But I understand the concerns of what it's going to take to bring it back versus what the insurance is that they may have there. So right now, we're on a track to, and I think that schedule's probably going to slip now because the board's strategic retreat got postponed because of the storm. So right now, it's kind of status quo on the loan. No payments are being received. We're just the bank right now. Would you agree with that, Councilmember?
Well, good enough.
Okay, all right.
I mean, obviously, it's been more done than just a bank, but
Sure.
yeah, I got you. But we're not the owner technically, I think is what you're saying.
That's correct.
Yeah, so, but, I'm sorry, but it's their insurance policy as far as we know, and they're the payee of the insurance company? Of
In
the
accordance
insurance
with the agreement and the mortgage.
comes to us?
I'm sorry. There is policies within there where additional insured. There are, similar to a homeowner policy, there's mortgagee rights for the city. We need to actually ferret through, make sure that the coverage is accurate. Fred provided me with the policy
Right.
renewal documents, but that's not the same as looking at the actual policy. I'm working with Dennis Slaybaugh, who's our special consultant on these issues.
Oh, okay.
On this right now,
All right.
so that we can formulate at least something so then the city manager and council can make some decisions.
But you're obviously coordinating with the Wonder Gardens on this, right? You will
Yes.
coordinate.
They've been
Absolutely.
open.
Yeah. And the only other thing I'd say, Fred, is it sounds like what Thomas, I mean, the first question is, what's the assessment of what's insured? Because I think he said there wasn't much damage to the building. I don't know. I doubt they have coverage on trees. But you got to figure it out. So you're coordinating with them, right?
But I think we need to have people other than them looking at this, number one, and number two, there's two tracks we're running here. One is they need to get open as soon as possible, because if they're not open, any revenue stream they
Right,
had
yes.
isn't there. The other thing is, we need to make sure that the proceeds cover what they need to do, or agree that we're gonna write a check for whatever to make up the shortfall before they start obligating themselves or us to contracts that are gonna, and I think if we are gonna restore it, I feel very strongly that the city needs to control the contracting and all that. I'm not saying be the signature, but pick the people and all that.
So what is, and Carl, just coordinate with Thomas
Sure.
and with your thoughts. And
Right.
I mean, I don't think anything you're saying is anything, but we're working together with them to understand it. And there's not going to be major expenditures undertaken without mutual consensus, or,
Right.
So, but I think that's kind of obvious. Wouldn't
Yeah, I don't
think
think
that's.
I don't think they're not going to fix it if it needs to be fixed.
Right.
I mean, I think they're going to treat this like their own home, and they're not going to do anything that's not right and up to par.
Right.
Is what I'm looking at it, is that, if the roof if something needs fixed, it's going to get fixed, and
Well, I
we're
think-
going into this partnership down the road with them to take care of it as if it was their own. So nothing leads me to believe that it would not be done that way now just because
But
of
we
the
should
storm?
we should coordinate.
Oh, no, I'm saying
Yeah,
coordinate, but I mean,
But we, if you're not careful, you could get in a situation where they move off and the cost to fix it is more than the proceeds.
I think that's part of the coordination.
Right.
yeah,
So that's what we don't want
Right.
to happen.
I understand that. I just don't.
And I'm not
You
saying
keep
we
using the
wouldn't
word move off. I don't think they're looking to get out of this thing. I don't think this storm was their caveat to say, oh, we're
no,
done.
I don't, I'm not saying
think
it
he said
is.
that.
I
Well,
just-
but he's saying move off. What do you mean move off?
if
I don't understand what
if you don't know what something's going to cost and you move into it, now you've already spent money. Now you have no choice but to spend money without us approving it. We ought to have some idea where we're at before much more than securing the place has been done.
Can we just agree that, I would say it's obvious that Carl, and hopefully it's obvious to them, obvious to us, that Carl or whomever from the city is coordinating with them, and that there's no major expenditures paid generally, but including out of the insurance. You know, so we have to be in agreement.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's, I don't
Yeah.
know why that would be an issue. I don't
Yeah.
think that's a
Right.
hard, even
And
a
I'm
sell.
not saying,
Yeah.
I'm not even intimating that if it was gonna cost another 100 or 150 or 250, that we wouldn't approve it, but I think we have to have, the residents are looking at us to be good stewards of the,
Right.
No, absolutely, and I think, I'll say it wrong, but we need to avoid the double dip. We need to avoid any situation where insurance might cover something, but then lo and behold, the city gets asked to pay for it, or whatever the situation is, right? We need to make sure every penny and every dollar is coordinated in conjunction for the betterment of that establishment and that property. However that is conducted, we need to be the maestro.
What is Dennis doing?
I've asked Dennis to assist me in first obtaining, we had certificates of insured. Fred provided me today with the policy renewal information. Getting the full policy. Dennis and I will then go through the full policy, determine, match it up with damages. Also review the operating agreement that we signed as well as the mortgage to make sure, one, that the proper insurance was in place that was requested for the mortgage, and
Okay.
two, help us proceed as as Carl used the term, as the bank.
Which is our technical position now. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sounds-
Fred, did you
sounds
have
good to me.
anything else, or? Yeah,
oh, that's it.
on this, okay. Council? Steve? No, you're good, okay.
I just had a council member item, call it what you want. There's so many people did great work, but I just specifically want to thank Arlene and Matt, just because I was on the phone with them a lot and I saw how hard they were working and I know what sleep they were missing, et cetera. So just to add that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I guess if we're going to move down the line here, we did so many things, and so many things were covered here today. I just want to, once again, thank everybody, thank the team. That goes without saying, and we covered it here quite a bit. This Friday night, this FEMA town hall meeting, I just can't say it enough or try to advertise it enough for people and families. Obviously it's we're Bonita Springs here, but please, members and residents of other cities and other counties, other towns, whatever, please come and join us this Friday night at 6 o'clock at the First Presbyterian Church on Bonita Beach Road. We will have members of FEMA there, FEMA's team, to get out information, answer questions, and that church holds a lot of people, so I hope it's full, and I hope, quite frankly, there's a few people standing that need answers and need information. So I want to thank FEMA for that. Laura's stepped outside of the room. I think NBC's on their way here, but there is a fundraiser that's in the making right now, I believe with Trek Bicycles is the name of the company. Mm-hmm. They're going to be we're going to be doing a bicycle, not a race, but not a marathon, but a bike ride, if you will, to benefit Bonita Springs, and I believe that's going to be October 7th. We're still working out some of those details, but seeing how there's a lag here before our next meeting. I want to begin promoting that. We'll get that information out. And I appreciate there's been a lot of people reach out for a lot of different things, but this is one thing that is going to be conducted here in Bonita Springs through Bonita Springs and assisting Bonita Springs residents. Governor Scott, I just want to continue to, I mean, he's been here. He's been in the water. He's been on the ground. He's been on the air. He's just been nonstop. He and his team have been accessible, reachable, proactive. Did you think about this? What about that? That is just phenomenal. And, he's got 67 counties to cover, and Lord knows what else is going on with the federal government that he's in coordination with. And he's just done a phenomenal job. He's going to be in the county again today at 3 o'clock, and I'm hopeful to get up to that meeting. Florida and Power and Light, look, I'll take it on the chops. There was a rough beginning there, but there's been a smooth landing and an even better delivery and execution. We went from no communication to a random text to a random phone call to daily communications. We've heard from the CEO. We've met with the CEO. They're setting up a tent city here in Bonita Springs, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of Florida Power and Light, Duke Energy, Pike Electric, on and on it goes, out at the dog track. A shout out to the Haveneck family. Whatever we need. I mean, it got to a point where, and they have 100 acres out there. We've had to actually move some automobiles that are being stored out there because we have such a massive operation going on out there. And I just want to thank Izzy and the Haveneck family, Juan Fra, the general manager out there. Juan just looks at me now and shakes his head. He goes, Peter, what else you need out here? I said, well, I don't really know exactly, Juan, but thank you for going with us and figuring this out. So for those who have not been out there, the National Guard continues to be there. We've set up cooling stations here at St. Mary's Episcopal Church for people that needed to get in and out of the hot weather, that needed to recharge their cell phone, that needed Wi-Fi, that quite frankly needed to get to FEMA one way or another, but didn't actually have the means to do that with FEMA. I want to thank FEMA for what they've done, both here on the ground and in Washington and in Tallahassee. I could just go on and on with the things that are going on and the shout outs and the thanks. But, actually, and I want to thank Councilman Deputy Mayor O'Flynn for sending that picture. I mean, you saw it on a rooftop. Bonita Strong, right? Hashtag Bonita Strong and Bonita Springs. So you find the best in everybody at a time like this. There have been a few occasions of you also, just a few, you find out the worst in folks. But, overwhelmingly, you see how this community has bonded and come together. And just thank you from the bottom of my heart. And as a rookie hurricane operator, trust me, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you this: continue the reach out, citizens. Get a hold of me, because if I don't have the answer, I'll get it for you. And I am relentless and ruthless about that. Ask Florida Power and Light, and they have just come through phenomenal, and everybody else is just doing a phenomenal job. So thank you very, very much. Steve? Greg?
No, I just want to say District 2 took it on the chin, but like the mayor said, Bonita Strong, they've went out in force and they've got all the trees cut. And if you go around District 2, they're all sitting there waiting to get picked up. And I know the city and Director Feeney is working all that out right now. So we're doing good.
Yes. We're on mayor and council member items,
okay.
and now we're doubling back to Fred.
We had
and then Mike is still on the phone, I
Yeah,
believe.
there's
No.
a thing that I want to bring up, and that is there's a lot of people with good intention that are trying to sell repairs to homes and all that. And in fact, I think we're going to be talking about building permit fees and all that, maybe doing something for people temporarily to make it less expensive. Two things you want to remember: deal only with licensed contractors. Secondly, most of the stuff that you are going to be needing to repair on the outside of the structure of the house requires a permit. Do not repair without a permit, because at the time you sell the house, the title companies will determine that it was done without a permit, and then you've got to go back and hope that building inspection will retroactively give you a permit, or they'll, or if you have a casualty loss on your insurance, and that unpermitted repair, even though it was done perfectly, if it fails, the policies say any repair work that was not, or work done that was not permitted is not covered by the insurance policy. So it's just a warning, and we got a lot of people just cruising neighborhoods saying, oh, what, oh, how did you do? And I think Councilman O'Flynn had a firsthand experience with something like that.
Yeah, I did as well.
So
So somebody's definitely in Bonita Bay roaming around, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
out there trolling, and they've got people that have, need work done. I mean, but I'm just giving that word of caution.
Yeah, I was on Dean Street west of Imperial, and just looking at that one water coming down, and this guy pulls up, he's got a thing, he's like, oh, how are you doing? How'd you fare, you know?
Now,
Nice.
the only other thing I was going to say is,
Yeah, not good.
I was at the crosshairs of a record-setting killer tornado that wiped out more than half a town, and was involved in the damage assessment and then the restoration of town. The same complaints that we're hearing are kind of SOP with natural disasters. You can never have enough communication. You can never have enough water. And then the other thing that's really important, and we can work on that, in Greg's line of work and Joe Daigle's line of work, there's what's called the medical minute. That those first 2 or 3 days, the more stuff that they can see going out to help them, that really makes it better. And we can improve all that, but we did one heck of a great job as it was. That's it.
Thank you, Fred. And be careful, they'll bad timing, I apologize. There are people out in neighborhoods knocking on doors for repairs that aren't licensed, that shouldn't be in the neighborhood to begin with. So just be careful that they came right to our house last night. So be careful. I know there's a lot of people that want to get work done. They can't stand the tree being wherever it is, but don't use unlicensed builders or contractors or operators. Councilman Forbes, fabulous point. Thank you very much. Anything else under council member items?
Just to add to that, make sure licensed and insured.
And insured. Thank you.
You don't want to somebody hurt on your property.
Right, right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, public hearing. A request to vacate a portion of a utility easement in the Highland Estates subdivision. This request has been made to facilitate the construction of a dental office approved as a part of the Bonita SOL CPD ordinance number 17-03, and this is green sheet number 17090358. Hello.
Good morning. For the record, Jay Sweet, Community Development. As part of the RPD approval for the dentist office that's over by the Walgreens, there were several conditions placed upon their approval, one of which was they needed to vacate the utility easement through the property and provide a new easement to FP&L. They have recorded a new easement to FP&L. We have letters of no objection from Bonita Springs, Comcast, and all the rest of the utilities. This is their formal petition to meet the requirements of their RPD zoning. Any questions?
Council? Okay. Audrey?
So moved.
If you-
So moved in a second. Audrey?
And I would assume that moving it to approve it, Mr. Boswell Eversole will prepare a resolution for evidencing city's approval today.
Okay.
And just for the record, Alex Boswell, Eversole, Assistant City Attorney, there was proper notice of this. It required 2 notices in a newspaper of general circulation, and that was done. We have an affidavit of publication that I reviewed, and it's sufficient.
Okay, great. Council, has been a motion in a second. Further discussion?
Public comment?
Yeah, Audrey, public comment? Yes, I'm sorry. Public comment on this? I apologize. Any member of the public that would like to speak on this item only, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Okay, great. We're going to move on to the first reading of the following ordinance, and public comment is allowed on this as well. An ordinance of the City Council of Bonita Springs, Florida, adopting the 2017 five-year capital improvement program annual update, providing for legislative findings, providing for severability, providing for exclusion from codification, and providing for an effective date. And this is green sheet number 17090356.
Thank you, and because you read the title block into the record, I'm not going to read it, so that'll take a little bit off my plate today. I did review the affidavit in publication. It is legally sufficient. What we will need to do, because we were unable to have it go to the local planning agency, and I was very impressed, the city clerk was able to get the affidavit out before the storm. We will need to start it at the October 4th meeting, and because your final budget hearing will be on October 5th, I will need to continue it to that date, but so that it's sufficient with the affidavit of publication. At the October 5th date, we will move it to the, at the October 4th date, we will move it to the meeting 2 weeks later, so we can have the local planning agency as well as the final reading at that time to coincide after you finish your budget. We never want to approve the CIP beforehand. The CIP does set forth your 5-year improvement plan. It is to be updated annually, and this is the first of many ordinances as an annual portion of your budget in the future.
Okay?
So Audrey, I read this, but it seems like 5 years ago I read the green sheet. So you said in there, it's going to be matched up to the budget. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Your budget has to come first.
Right, that's what you
And
just-
then as long as you may want to reprioritize projects, and that should be done within your budget. After that's done, the Exhibit A, which I have the current draft, will be modified in accordance with your budget, because this might not be what you want to adopt at that point. We'll then go back and, with the assistance, of course, of finance, make those changes and put it in for your October 18th.
Whatever date, yeah.
Right, the final.
Thank you. So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, and we'll do public comment at this time. If there's members of the public that would like to speak on this, please come forward. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good, thank you, Mayor. I would like to bring up the subject of electric vehicles and charging stations. I think there should be some provision made by the city to have fast-track charging stations somewhere in this 5-year period, or if we can do that through the Bloomberg thing. I don't know much about that, but there's possibilities there, I believe. And, you know, the number of electric vehicles that are going to be on the road is on the increase, and the number of charging stations is few and far between. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other members of the public? Okay, seeing none. Further discussion, council?
No.
Roll call.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move on now to the second reading and public hearing of the following ordinances. Audrey, I'll let you read this one, and public comment is allowed.
Thank you. This is an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs amending Section 2-571, setting forth the community development, planning, and zoning fees, providing for cost recovery for certain consultants, providing for a repealer, conflicts of law, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and effective date. Again, I was pleased to see the affidavit of publication. It was able to be posted in the paper or advertised. I do have the affidavit publication. It is legally sufficient and on file with the city clerk. I did also receive changes to this ordinance, which is part of your second errata sheet as item 11A. And I highlighted in yellow the changes. It's predominantly, the text changes would relate to electronic recording fees. We had put a lump sum and then we would do reconciliation, but that became an auditing nightmare. So since we already had an electronic recording fees, we fixed it that way. On page 5, I had a typo. I didn't think that was that exciting. And we did change electronic recording fees slightly to coincide with this change. Before it was used, it's called Simplifile, and we used the Simplifile recording system as a convenience. Now it will be mandatory for some reason, so I took out the convenience language, and I also corrected where it said charge. And then the final thing is, again, the USB drive. They fluctuate in prices, and I think staff felt for an 8 gigabyte, $10 per USB drive was sufficient.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Further discussion, public comment. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt,
Aye.
Mayor Simmons,
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move on to public comment now. Members of the public that wish to speak on any subject, please come forward at this time. Hello, John.
John West again. I met some people the other day who made the following comment to me. They are so grateful that they got power back, and they said that the team that did it in their area was a team from Mississippi. They did in 8 hours what they said Florida Power and Light never could do in 8 days. I later on came across another team of workers from out of state. I said to them, "Where are you from?" And they said they're from all over the place: Indiana, Texas, Arkansas, Maine, you have it. They're here. They're working for us. I think that's a wonderful thing, and they're to be congratulated as much as anybody else. Secondly, you know that I was at the time of the storm in my son's place in Davie. As soon as I got there, the electric went off, and the only means of getting to know what's going on anywhere was on the radio. And prior to the power going off, I had seen, Mayor, your picture in on the internet indicating what we should be doing prior to the storm coming here, and I thought that your presentation was very useful. On the Monday after the storm, I was looking again for your presentation, but I still saw the old one from getting ready for the storm. And so that prompted me to send an email in, and I must say I appreciate very much the reply that I got from the city manager, who took the trouble to put me in the picture about what was going on in Bonita, and I'm very grateful for that.
Great.
On the subject of Tori's presentation this morning, or her comment rather this morning, and your follow-up, Peter, I would, there was a suggestion made during the Water Task Force period that there could be usefully instituted a watershed committee, Imperial River Watershed Committee, to study, if I may continue.
Yes.
To study the question of water in the city, flooding and whatever water problems we have in the city. That was never taken up, and I wonder if maybe it wouldn't be advisable to have such a committee to really push South Florida Water Management District to do something about the flooding in this city. And so I make that suggestion again. The question of the meeting on Friday at the Presbyterian Church, the FEMA meeting, going to be very useful. There, Fred gave me some information this morning about clearing up sites that have been inundated with the jumble of trees that have been downed with the storm. A lot of people don't have that information. And I think if we can get that information about this meeting out to people, it will be very helpful.
Yes.
The last thing I want to mention is that only having a radio out of range of Lee County is rather depressing. And I don't know if anything can be done about increasing the range of 90.1 FM beyond the limit of the present range that it has. But it would have been very useful to keep in contact through that means, because if you have no TV and no telephone and no power, but you have a radio operated gadget, it would be nice to hear what's going on in Bonita Springs.
Right.
And lastly, I do thank everybody, council, staff, for all that they did during the storm. I think it's wonderful that how people have reacted and come together, and how they've conducted themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, Rick Steinmeier. FP&L, they bring us power. Now Comcast and CenturyLink, I guess, bring us phone and TV. There's several places on Hickory Boulevard where the palm trees have been uprooted and laying down, and the only thing holding them up is either Comcast or CenturyLink's wire. It's not Florida Power and Light. There's several places where there's Comcast wire or CenturyLink's wire across the road that are down. They don't seem to be, I don't know how to get them fixed. People say, well, what do I do about this tree that's hanging on this line? It's a power. I said, no, that's not a power line. The power's on the other side of the street. What do we do? So that was my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Other members of the public? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to City Attorney's report.
Thank you. I have one item on the agenda. It's not posted on the agenda, but as you know, as a result of Hurricane Irma, the city canceled the executive sessions, and at this time I'd like to do the announcement for the new attorney-client sessions. As you know, the city is a party to an adversarial action entitled English Paradise of Bonita Springs versus City of Bonita Springs, Florida, which is a petition for formal administrative hearing, Florida Division of Administrative Hearings, case number 17-003252GM. Pursuant to Florida statutes, section 286.011, subsection 8, I'm requesting that the City Council convene in a closed attorney-client session to discuss litigation and settlement strategies. Only the City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, and Special Land Use Counsel David Theriak will be in attendance. The session will be scheduled for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017 at 4 p.m., the day before your regularly scheduled City Council meeting. The city is also party to a lawsuit entitled BG Mine LLC versus City of Bonita Springs, Lee County Circuit Court case number 2017 CA 000381, And also a petition for a formal hearing before the Division of Administrative Hearing case, also entitled BG Mine LLC versus City of Bonita Springs, DOAH case number 17-003871 GM, pursuant to Florida Statute Section 286.011, subsection 8. I'm requesting that the City Council convene in a closed attorney-client session to discuss litigation and settlement strategies. Only the City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, and Special Land Use Counsel David Theriak will be in attendance. That session will be scheduled for Wednesday, October 4th, 2017 at 3 p.m., just before your regularly scheduled City Council meeting on that date. Finally, the city is also party to a lawsuit entitled City of Bonita Springs versus WCI Communities et al., Lee County Circuit Court Case Number 2016, CA 4027. Pursuant to Florida Statutes Section 286.011, subsection 8, I am requesting that the City Council convene in a closed attorney-client session to discuss litigation and settlement strategies. Only the City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, and Special Land Use Counsel David Theriak will be in attendance. The session will be scheduled for Thursday, October 5th, 2017 at 9 a.m., the day after your regularly scheduled City Council meeting. The subject matter of these 3 meetings shall be confined to settlement negotiations or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures. The entire session will be recorded by a circuit court reporter. The court reporter will record the times of commencement and termination of the sessions, all discussions and proceedings, the names of all persons present at any time, and the names of all persons speaking. No portion of the session shall be off the record. The court reporter's note shall be fully transcribed and filed with the city clerk within a reasonable time after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. And I guess if we could push out those dates again for members of council, not now, but I mean, if, yeah, so we have those, that'd be great. Audrey, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I think Arlene's got the items.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Council. Councilmember Fred Forbes alluded a little bit to some permit fees and things we have going on. So I just wanted to let the public know as well. Of course, as the mayor stated and as Councilman Forbes said, please use licensed contractors who are insured. During this time, the city manager has authorized the permit fees be waived, not the permit. Still, the inspections will occur. Regular process as you're hiring that licensed contractor, they should be acquiring the permit, but the permit fee will be waived for screen enclosures, residential roof permits, as well as multifamily residential roof permits, sheds, dock and shoreline, seawall, riprap, and fences. And primarily, these are our affect residences that have been affected. As we go through the process, if our Community Development Department sees a need, they will be bringing that to the Office of the City Manager to address that, and we'll make that determination. So this would be a service for those folks.
On what you just said, when you said the fee has been waived, but they still have to come and get a permit.
Correct, and they would go through all of the final processes as far as inspection and receive CO or certificate of completion. Those processes will be complete, and all of those permits will be recorded through the system as well. The fee will just be waived.
Yeah, and one other, a little point. Immediately following the hurricane, our building inspectors were out in every community where they could get through. Obviously, there was 3 foot of water, that was a problem. But they were making notes on each structure as to what damage, whether it was pool cage, need of roof repair, a roof or whatever. So this will be, at some point, if people do unpermitted work, it's going to come back to haunt them. And it's best to do it right. And the city's doing its part by waiving the fees, which others commend.
Yeah, Councilman, if I might add to that. So I worked through Charlie when I was up in Cape Coral in 2004. And we had major difficulties with unlicensed contractors. We caught them all the time. We tried to warn the residents of the possible damage to their homes being done improperly, number one. And number two, later on, if they wanted to sell the house, as you talked about. So it was a very difficult time for the inspectors to keep up with not just the inspections, but catching the violators for not being properly licensed. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a great point, and we need to keep pushing that out to the residents as well for their own protection. Yep.
Additionally, it's important for their records, for their insurance, to keep copies of all the permits that they receive. I'd also like to make sure we thank Father Michael Rowe and the entire staff of St. Mary's Episcopal Church. Within 2 hours, they provided, we were working very diligently to find a space that actually had power, meeting room space, and they very generously offered their staff to assist us, as well as their church's Wi-Fi for anyone who needed to log on to it. They also ensured that every day the visitors that we had food available to them, hot food in some cases for lunch. And we did experience a situation where we were able to help a couple who hadn't eaten in 3 days, and that was their food that they had. So we're very, very appreciative to their staff who jumped right in, as well as Captain Lee and Lieutenant Prespaluski, who within 3 or 4 hours was able to provide us their staff assistance to keep that going as well. What we like to move on to is the errata sheet. Is as late as, I guess, Monday, we heard from, on the 18th, we heard from the folks with the Bloomberg philanthropies. And Council Member Deputy Mayor O'Flynn and I did attend the first webinar. There are 2 more webinars to occur. But due to Hurricane Irma, our original workshop was scheduled for the 8th, and of course we canceled that because of the urgency for folks to evacuate and storm preparation. We had been trying to see if we could schedule something for the last week of September, and the Bloomberg folks have reached out to us to let us know that it is not required to have the workshop, so we could continue with the process. It was indicated to us during the webinar that the reason they provided those workshops is because they felt it was invaluable to those communities to participate in that. We did provide you a copy of the actual application, and additionally, we've attached, there was a survey that Councilmember O'Flynn and I looked at briefly that had some more detailed questions on your actual decision of a problem to solve for the community. And at staff level, we just didn't want to assume what those problems might be until the discussion was able to happen at this level. I do want to advise council that the application would be due no later than October 20th. That is the deadline. Once that occurs, they would pick 35 champion communities. And from there, that would be dwindled down to their top 5, which would receive $1 million, and the number 1 project would receive $5 million. It is a 3 to 5 year commitment with a capital improvements plan that you would provide in your application. The folks who are awarded the champion communities, the 35 cities, would have to reapply then for the $1 million level, because they would get the 35 communities would be part of a test hypothesis type project where you would be testing your solutions to move forward, and then you receive the monies based on the positive response of that.
And that's, if I remember right, that's $100,000, right?
It's 100,000, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was something like 35 that get 100.
Correct.
or-
If you're one of the 35, you get 100,000 to begin your process of testing your solution through your community. Those test results are submitted again for your opportunity to be one of the finalists. There is a significant amount of work that we would need to start working on immediately in order to do it on
I'm
the
just
20th.
wondering with everything going on. What do you
Yeah, that's my feeling. We've got a lot going on with the recovery.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I would like to do
Like to
this,
do
but
it.
I don't know. I mean, when you spoke with him, because obviously we called off the workshop, and how much are they going to drill down on these deadlines with what's going on in the state of Florida?
As far as I know, there is no, the deadline is October 20th. That's what I've been told. There's no extension of that deadline because we're competing nationally, and in some cases they have other levels, but
Is there some way we could do it without involving everybody, minimizing the work for staff, and
Yes.
get something in?
Yeah, and get some, I agree. I
Mr.
agree.
Mayor, if I might.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carl?
So, as you've seen, this is a competitive process. We need to be able to put our best foot forward. They are looking for problems that demand bold and innovative solutions. I agree that we have issues in the city, but we are having difficulty, at least at the staff level, determining a problem that would be serious enough that would that would need a bold and innovative solution that could be shared across the country. And my concern is if we can't put all the time we need in here, I don't know that our product is going to be, number one, as good as it could be, Mayor. And then how is that going to stack up against anybody else who's not in the state of Florida and who are competing, you know, at the A level? That's my concern.
The only thing I would say is, I mean, my biggest concern is the time sinks for staff.
Yes.
All right. Because Arlene and I, we looked at the winners, and I know, so there were 4, we don't have to do this today, this is not as important, but there were like 4 things they were looking at: bold and innovative and transferable.
Right.
And
Correct.
all right. But when you look at the winners, okay, they're bold and innovative, but I mean, they're not. I mean, when you look at the winners, you're not necessarily, when you look at them, the ideas they had, you don't come away saying, wow. I mean, with all respect to Bloomberg Philanthropies. So I think we could do something. I hear what you're saying, that is the category, but I mean, one, for example, was in Barcelona, I think it was, and it had to do with a network of accessibility, in that case, for senior living facilities. So what I'm getting at is, I think we could put in something. My only concern, and I think it would hit the level of bold, as applied, not as they're talking in the lingo. My only concern comes back to, I mean, we got real stuff to do here. But can we think about it till the next meeting and see if we can just come up with something to throw in that's respectable?
Oh, when you say bold and innovative, I mean, look what we're dealing with. I
Right.
mean, you know, that
Right.
might be an obvious bold and innovative.
I mean, one idea could play off what Chief Daigle was saying I'm just off the top of my head, what Chief Daigle was saying with Carl about communication, and with Lieutenant Preskolewski, maybe a higher level of even that. You never know. Off the top of my head, I mean, that would be transferable throughout areas along the whole Gulf Coast. I'm just throwing that out.
Right, I understand.
You know.
But my concern that has been shared already up
Right.
here is staff time to do
Absolutely.
something,
Right.
a piece of
Absolutely.
work, and is it going to be, will it go anywhere?
Let me
That's
make
the
a
question.
suggestion. What if we
Yes.
come to, today's not the day, come back to the next meeting, we have time to think. I can talk to Arlene if people want, and get a better sense. We do not want to be taking a lot of staff time, and we don't want to throw in a piece of
Mhm.
garbage. I agree with that.
Understood.
But if there is some way that if we could just spend a half an hour here at the next meeting talking about problems and solutions, and just seeing if we could throw in something respectable in the context of not taking a lot of staff time. And we may just say, forget it.
And
Because we have a whole lot of real work for a lot of real people here.
I did want to share too that I did notice that some of the timeline did start back in July, and I know it was through the opportunity that you went to the U.S. Congress of Mayors that you found out about it. So if we did look at an application for next year, there's an opportunity to start way in advance, and then solidify our opportunity to have our lock-in. Ask them, because of the situation that we're in, is to lock in our ability to be one of the 300 cities that get the free
Next
workshop
year.
now. That way, we could start the process even earlier next
Right.
year and be thinking about ideas as we move along, and we're in this recovery phase as well. And then we would be able to maybe be more prepared to actually have a well-thought-out and prepared application.
Well, Peter, may I suggest maybe that's the way we're going to go, but let's talk about it again next time and just see.
Sounds good. Great.
And I would be willing, I will contact them to see what we would need to do to make sure that if we did postpone to next year, that we are one of the 300 and communities, and that we start the process as early as we could and get some time frames for that.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, Arlene?
I just wanted to again thank everybody for their support. You, Mayor, Chief DeWitt, and staff. I cannot say enough wonderful things about Laura and Matt, Chris. Their work ethic is unreproachable. the other staff members who stayed with us when there was evacuation warnings and no school closures on Thursday, so that all city facilities were well prepared and we were staying to our mission of our emergency management plan. There's many wonderful personal stories that I experienced through the process. It's a huge growth experience. I also want to thank Councilman DeWitt and his firefighters who, in the eye of the storm, ran out to save horses. And that's an amazing story. So that's just one of the many things that we got to experience, and thanking everyone for their guidance and support. And without the millions of phone calls I made and got the resources back, I wouldn't be able to do my job. So I want to thank everybody.
Thank you, Arlene. Carl, you're good?
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mayor and council member reports. Do we have any more reports?
Well, no, just one. I mean, Greg's sitting there, I'm thinking he's got like 10,000 stories in his head that he's dying to tell. Maybe tell us one or two. Or.
No, it was a great experience. And what Arlene was talking about during the eye of the storm, I went out to do some surveying of the roadways at the eye, and next door to Station 4, there was 4 horses that were left out in the pasture. And when and we thought that was a bad thing at first until we talked to some horse people.
So they were riding out the storm in the pasture.
Yeah,
I was curious about that.
Yeah, and the reason being is, from what we got told, was if you leave them in the barn, they will kick themselves to injury trying to get out because of the storm. Well, the fence went down, and when I was out in the eye of the storm, down by Terry Street, I seen these horses in the road. And I turned my vehicle around and shoot them back.
They got down that far?
They got down to Terry Street and Bonita Grand. Wow. So we brought them back, and no, it was a good experience. But having the city staff there and the deputies there, it was a good thing, and we worked together so well. It was just amazing. The mayor was there, and dare I say it, we had a good time. It was a stressful time, but we made the best of it. And
we did.
And it was a great experience, I have to say. And my 29 years at the fire department is one of the better experiences that I've had.
Thank you, Greg, very much.
Just quickly, I did get a call Sunday night or Saturday night from Phil Flood because of some particular situation, and spent some time talking with him. And obviously, one of our things going forward is to work with the Water Management District. I did end up on a helicopter yesterday going over with them and some really intelligent people there, starting on State Road 82, out by Trafford, Kiel Canal, Bonita Grand Mine, et cetera. It's fascinating from the, as much as I personally, I know Fred has done this when we were not on council, we used to talk a lot of stuff we've read, and, starting with Bonita 95 report and the Arnold report, the South Lee plan, the amendment to the South Lee plan, talking to a lot of people, including Gary Price, and who was involved in '09, et cetera. So you think you know a lot, maybe, but you never know enough. And it's really interesting to actually see that from the air. You can actually see the particular areas. It's all sheet flow, yes, but they were pointing out, 2 extremely wide swaths from the north, coming from Edison Farms area, coming down, as well as from the west on Lake Trafford. And a lot of other good information, including something I've always been wondering about, and I know it's come up in the context of Bonita National. I've talked to John about it from time to time, about what was the historical flow south. And the Mirasol flowway down there was explained to me, et cetera. So I do think, obviously, we have to hop on this, but there are a lot of parts to it, and there's even more to learn, but I really appreciated that. They were actually going to look at some facilities down in Collier County, and I was just talking to Phil at the last minute. There was an extra seat, so I went on. So I ended up on the flight down to Collier County, and it is water world out there. There's no question about it. And that's yesterday. I did send around photos that Phil had taken last week. So anyhow.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
Fred?
Yeah, two things. My general manager at Hunter's Ridge made a real good observation, and I think he's more right than wrong. Most of the trees that blew over, and most of the ones that created one heck of a lot of damage when they went over, from breaking a house water line because the trees had wrapped around it, landing on your roof, it was and I found they're really not native Florida trees, but the city advocates, it's number one on their recommended leaf tree list, the live oak tree. And we had more of those go down than any other kind of trees that we had. So I would say that we want to ask Mike Kirby and even the tree committee to rethink whether they want to put this live oak, because the one reason it's top on the list is one of the cheaper trees, but it has a very bad root structure that grows on top of the ground. You trip over it and stuff, and it sheds dirt. But the main thing is they blow over in storms like this. And the second thing, just want to touch on what Councilman O'Flynn said. When that big canal that goes along Mockley Road was originally designed.
Which road?
Yeah, the canal down along
Oh, Mockley?
Road.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yep.
Just think, since the big storms of '04 and the big flood of '95, how much development, forget about what we're doing up here, Mockley Road is just golf course after golf course after gated community, and all that has changed that historic flow again to the south. So, just a little observation, so.
Thank you, Fred. Greg?
I forgot to bring it up. I don't know if anyone's going to go to it, but the Regional Planning Council meeting is canceled for tomorrow. And I did talk to Margaret about that yesterday and asked him about what the other counties are going to do with this whole, some are opting out, some are wanting not to pay, the whole 9 yards. And she clued me in that there are 2 bills getting filed right now, basically, because of the legislature is going to start in January. They're already starting to file these bills. One of them is to make the counties pay for it, and the other one is that's on behalf of the Regional Planning Council that say you have to have it and you have to pay for it. And there's one saying you can opt out, you don't have to be part of it. So it's going to be a fight in Tallahassee, and we are still waiting on the Attorney General's opinion on whether they have to belong to it, and if they do belong, do they have to pay, and as it's currently written today. So just to bring you an update on that, but it is canceled for tomorrow.
Thank you, Greg. Anything else, Council? Okay, approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Okay, public comment. Members of the public that would like to speak, please come forward at this time.
Yeah, Rick Steinmeier. Before hurricane season starts, people should consider harvesting the coconuts out of the coconut trees. I noticed that the ones that went down had the coconuts on them, or the ones that didn't, that had been trimmed, stood. The extra weight of the coconuts brought the trees down. So we lost one on our property, and next year they're going to be trimmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Oh, John?
John West, for the record. There's a sign by the toilet out there about the meeting, the FEMA meeting on Friday. I suggest that it be better placed somewhere so that people can see it. The other thing is that you mentioned, Greg, about the eye of the storm. I spoke to a lady yesterday. She said the relief when the wind stopped, they all went out into the streets celebrating the end of the storm, and she said to the people, you better get inside because in 20 minutes all hell is going to break loose again. And sure enough, that happened, and they all went in. And fortunately, it wasn't so bad. Regarding the Wonder Gardens, I have a suggestion that the only money to be spent, public money to be spent, if there is any money to be spent on the resurrection of the Wonder Gardens, is a sign that says the following. This is the site of the former Everglades Wonder Gardens, beloved of the citizens and visitors, citizens of and visitors to Bonita Springs since, I don't know when it was built, 19-something or other. Destroyed by Hurricane Irma on the 9th of September 2017. I'm sorry, but I think the damage caused there is going to cost money to rebuild, to make it what it should be, what people desire it to be. And I think the $3 million we've got invested in that is too much to recover from. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other members of the public? Okay, seeing none, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.